give their opinions on this motion. Matters that the previous speakers have raised include issues to do with corruption, issues to do with public resources or wastage of public resources, issues to do with opulence, issues to do with constitution or unconstitutional offices, and a number of issues. And with regards to this motion is that the Senate is seeking to call upon a number of government institutions and constitutional offices to undertake a number of measures. The National Police Service has been called upon to cease abductions. Remember, this State of the Nation motion is with regards to the protests that were witnessed across the country in the last 2 weeks that were occasioned by the Anti-Finance Bill 2024 demonstrations that has led or has seen the government or the national government take a number of measures with regards to coming to terms with the issues that have been raised by the Generation Z in terms of governance and reforms in the government. So the National Police Service has been called upon to cease abductions, unlawful arrests, extrajudicial killings, and exercise restraint. Well, allow me to hand you over to this live proceedings. The quorum has been achieved.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Honorable Senators, kindly take your seat. Honorable Senators, I hereby report to the Senate that a petition has been submitted through the clerk by the petitioners Mr. Bernard G. Kamanda concerning non-payment of outstanding terminal benefits and Maziwa Sacco dues for former employees of the Kenya Cooperative Creameries Limited, KCC. As you are aware, under Article 119(1) of the Constitution, and I quote, "Every person has a right to petition Parliament in order to consider any matter within its authority, including enacting, amending, or repealing any legislation." Honorable Senators, the salient issues raised in this petition are as follows. 1, that on the collapse and takeover of the Kenya Cooperative Creameries Limited, KCC, all employees were summarily terminated in November 1997 following a strike. Thereafter, the union filed a case in the Industrial Court, case number 24 of 1994, and the court ruled that the employees were entitled to the terminal benefits. 2, that the management of the then KICC Limited produced a schedule of payment due to every employee in terms of their terminal benefits, gratuity, and unremitted Maziwa Sacco dues, totaling to 204,471,555.20 cents. That another case was filed in the Employment and Labor Relations Court, case number 1299 of 2013, and the court ruled that the employees be paid the dues by new KCC and the government. That the new KCC appealed the decision condemning them to pay, and the Court of Appeal overturned the Labour Court's decision. However, in so doing, the Court of Appeal agreed that while all arguments before the court are pure legalistic, it gave an opinion that it will be just for the Attorney General to advise the government to honour its word to pay the workers who had suffered for long. That a number of the employees have since died in misery and suffering without being paid their dues, and those who are still alive continue to suffer. That through the advocates, the petitioners have made several efforts to have the matter addressed by the relevant authorities, including the new KCC, the Attorney General, and various government agencies, all of which have been unsuccessful. Consequently, the petitioners pray that the Senate investigates this matter with a view to ensure that the former KCC employees are paid the terminal benefits, the contributions to Maziwa Sacco, and the Provident Fund dues deducted by KCC but not remitted to the scheme, all totaling to 204,471,555 shillings and 20 cents, plus interest accrued since 1997 to date. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 238-1, the petition is hereby committed to the Standing Committee on Labour and Social Welfare for consideration. And in terms of Standing Order 238-2, the committee is required, in not more than 6 calendar days from the time of reading this prayer, which is today, to respond to the petitioners by way of a report addressed to the petitioners and laid on the table of the Senate. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Honourable Speaker, on behalf of the Leader of the Majority, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, the 9th of July 2024, a report of the Auditor General on the County Government's Revenue Funds for the financial year 2022-2023, and the summary report of the Auditor General on the County Government's Revenue Fund for the financial year 2022-2023.
Next order. Yes, Senator Faki.
Having read the petition, I am seeking your indulgence to allow me to comment on the petition. If you'll allow me, 3 minutes will be adequate for me. Who are you? Who are you?
You will notice that Standing Order 237, which relates to comments on petitions, was actually deleted. It's not an amendment. That particular provision that gave you a leeway to make comments on petitions was actually deleted. And therefore,
This petition in this House, members were allowed to comment on the petition. I don't know whether for whose interest that standing order was deleted, because as members we were not consulted, and we need to be given that opportunity to comment on these petitions. Thank you.
Senator Faki, nobody can unilaterally sit in the office to delete, amend, or insert any standing order. That was done by resolution of the House, and therefore let us abide. Next order, Clerk.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Statements pursuant to Standing Order 52-1. Honorable Senator Hamida Kibwana.
On behalf of Senator Hamida, Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to Standing Order 52-1, I rise to make a statement on a matter of general topical concern on the critical issue of men's mental health, especially as we observe June as Men's Mental Health Month. Mental health is a fundamental aspect of overall well-being, yet it remains a highly stigmatized and often neglected issue among men. We must address this matter with urgency. Mr. Speaker, the state of men's mental health in Kenya is alarming. According to the World Health Organization, Kenya has one of the highest rates of depression in Africa, and mental health disorders are leading cause of morbidity. Men in particular face unique challenges and less likely to seek help due to societal expectation and stigma. Mr. Speaker, recent statistical reveals a grim picture. Suicide is a leading cause of death among men in Kenya. The Kenya National Bureau of Standards Statistics reports that men are 3 times more likely to die by suicide than women. Men are more likely to engage in substance abuse as a coping mechanism for unaddressed mental health issues. This not only exacerbates mental health problems, but also leads to a higher rates of addiction and related health complications. Mental health disorders contribute to a significant economic burden due to lost productivity, healthcare costs, and social welfare expenses. Men are often seen as our primary breadwinners. They face immense pressure, further deteriorating their mental health. Mr. Speaker, the cultural expectation for men to be stoic, strong, and self-reliant prevents most from seeking help. This toxic masculinity not only isolates men, but also discourages open conversations about mental health. The stigma associated with mental illness further exacerbates the issue, leading to underreporting and undertreatment. Mr. Speaker, we must take immediate and decisive action to address men's mental health issues. The following measures are essential. 1, the government should launch nationwide campaigns to raise awareness about men's mental health, encouraging men to seek help and breaking the stigma associated with mental health issues. 2, promote mental health programs in workplaces, encouraging employers to provide support and resources for employees' mental well-being. This can include employee assistance programs and mental health days. Establish community-based support networks where men can discuss mental health issues openly and receive peer support. These networks can be facilitated through local health centers, religious institutions, and community organizations. 5, integrate mental health education into school curriculums to foster easy understanding and destigmatization of mental health issues among young men. This can help create more open and supportive environment for future generations. Mr. Speaker, several initiatives have proven effective in supporting men's mental health globally, and we can adapt this to our context. 1, Movember Foundation, which focuses on men's mental health issues, including mental health. They run awareness campaigns and fund research to improve mental health towards men. 2, Heads Up Guys. This Canadian initiative provides online resources, especially for men, offering practical advice and tools to manage depression and other mental health issues, creating a Kenyan version of such a resource. 3, Man Therapy. This innovative approach uses humor and relatable content to engage men in conversations about mental health. It provides resources and encourages men to seek help in a non-threatening way. A similar campaign in Kenya could help break down barriers. 4, community-based programs like Men's Sheds and Australian provide a space for men to come together, work on projects, and talk about their mental health. Mr. Speaker, mental health is of great importance. As we observe Men's Mental Health Month this June, let us commit to taking decisive action to improve mental health awareness and support for men in Kenya. By addressing this critical issue, we can ensure that all men have the opportunity to lead healthy and fulfilling lives. Lastly, I urge my esteemed colleagues in this House to support initiatives that promote mental health awareness and services for men, reducing stigma, providing much-needed support. Together, we can make a significant difference in the lives of countless men across our nation. I thank you, Senator Hamida Kibwana. If I may proceed, Mr. Speaker, on her second statement. Thank you. On recognition of Jambi Koikai's valiant struggle with endometriosis and her efforts to raise awareness. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 52 to make a statement on a matter of general topical concern, namely, recognition of the valiant struggle with endometriosis by the late Jambi Koikai and her tireless efforts in raising awareness for this debilitating disease until her untimely demise at the age of 38 years. Mr. Speaker, endometriosis is a chronic condition where tissue similar to the lining side of the uterus grows outside. It causes severe pain, inflammation, and the formation of scar tissues. The symptoms include painful periods that can be incapacitating, persistent pain in the pelvic region, significant discomfort during sexual activity, painful bowel movements, and urination. Mr. Speaker, the late Jambi was a renowned media personality, reggae master of ceremonies, and public advocate. Battled endometriosis for many years. Her condition was severe, leading to repeat lung collapse during a menstrual cycle, a rare and extreme manifestation known as thoracic endometriosis. Despite her personal suffering, Jambi used her platform to educate and raise awareness about endometriosis. She openly shared her journey through social media and public forums, highlighting the physical, emotional, and financial challenges posed by the disease. Jambi's advocacy work shed light on the struggles of many women suffering in silence and pushed for better healthcare support and policy. On Kenyan women, the government through the Ministry of Health may consider undertaking the following actions. 1, launch innovative and national-wide campaigns to educate the public about endometriosis, its symptoms, and the importance of seeking medical advice. Ensure that diagnostic and treatment services for endometriosis are available and affordable in both urban and rural areas to provide specialized training for healthcare providers.
I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding the 156 billion loan advanced to Kenya by the World Bank with the condition of integrating 400,000 refugees. In the statement, the committee should confirm whether the 156 billion is a loan or a grant and explain why the condition to integrate refugees should be attached to approval of the funding, and establish the origin of the 400,000 refugees, explaining any correlation between the Kenyan shillings 156 billion being given to Kenya and the integration of these refugees, why they're in Kenya now, and the criteria and parameters of them being in Kenya. I thank you.
Senator Faki.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources on the land problems in Mombasa County and other coastal counties. Mr. Speaker, sir, land has been a thorny issue in Mombasa and the entire coastal counties. There are historical land claims and also land invasions that have deprived genuine landowners of their legitimate land rights. This has resulted in many people being classified as squatters with no hope of ever owning the land on which they have settled. Many people are also left in the limbo after brokers invade people's lands and sell it to the unsuspecting members of the public, only for them to realize that those who sold them the land had no titles. This sad state of affairs has undermined the right to housing, as the houses built on these lands have no title deeds and are unrecognized. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee should, one, enumerate the efforts by the government to resolve the land management and ownership issues in the coastal counties. Number two, confirm whether the government has considered buying land to settle the squatters residing in coastal counties or facilitating squatters to access affordable credit to buy the land on which their structures stand. And number three, state actions taken, if any, by the national and county governments to provide essential services such as water, health, markets, and others in areas where the squatters have settled so that they live as normal human beings. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Affairs regarding the harassment by the police of residents of the Ikolomani constituency following a mining rights conflict between a private gold mining investor by the name of Shanta Gold Limited and the residents of the Ikolomani constituency, leading to the death of one person. Mr. Speaker, allow me, in respect of Vincent Moi, to give my condolences as I raise this statement, because he's the man who lost his life in that conflict. And allow me, Mr. Speaker, to thank the PS Raymond Omolo for his swift action when I went to his office and there was a standoff between the police and the community. He ordered that Shanda Gold machines be moved out of Ikolomani with immediate effect, which was done, and it retained normalcy, Mr. Speaker. I thank the PS. I would like in this statement, Mr. Speaker, the committee to, one, explain the circumstances leading to the deaths of these residents in Ikolomani on the 16th of June, 2024, following the ongoing conflict between residents and the mining company over mining rights. And two, state measures taken by the police to investigate and arrest those responsible for the death of the resident, stating when the said suspect will be produced in court to face charges. Three, state the immediate measures taken by the security agencies in Ikolomani to mitigate the conflict and restore normalcy, including any measures to restrain the investor from exacerbating this conflict. Four, investigate the concerns of the residents of Ikolomani constituency in Kakamega County with a view of addressing the conflict between the investor and the residents. And finally, but not least, Mr. Speaker, find out why unscrupulous local security personnel are aiding the mining company to access the gold mines in total disregard of the views of other stakeholders, and recommend measures to address the matter. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, on behalf of Senator Mohamed Chute, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding the attacks on residents of Anona, Waigoda and Abo villages in Marsabit County by Ethiopian government forces. Mr. Speaker, sir, for decades, the Ethiopian government has carried out military operations across the border with Kenya, where they end up harassing and attacking residents of Marsabit County. The most recent attack occurred 2 weeks ago, during which the aforementioned villages were attacked, several houses burned, and motorbikes and mobile phones confiscated. In the statement, the committee should, 1, inform the Senate of any humanitarian assistance extended to the residents displaced during these attacks, providing details of any initiatives by the government to resettle them. And 2, provide details of strategies in place by the government of Kenya to reclaim the confiscated belongings of the residents of Marsabit County and protect them from similar attacks in future. And 3, state any plans by the government to deploy the Kenya Defense Forces in Sororo sub-county to heighten security in the area and defend the residents against this external aggression, providing timelines within which this will be effected. Senator Mohamed Chute. Mr. Speaker, on the second statement, on behalf of Senator Mohamed Chute, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding ongoing mining activities at Hilo Gold Mine in Moyare, Marsabit County, despite its closure by the government via a Gazette notice of March 13, 2024, which banned all the artisanal mining and other human activities within that area over security concerns. In the statement, the committee should, 1, investigate why only a certain people have been allowed to access to the mine after its closure, evidenced by recent incidents where 5 people were reported dead, while 2 others were injured after the mine collapsed. And 2, interrogate the cause of the crashes that claimed 7 lives and resulted to several artisans sustaining injuries and closure of the mine, stating the action to be taken to establish a cohesion amongst the communities involved in the crashes from the Dabel community and the Raja Marsabit County to work in harmony in the mining center. Senator Mohamed Chute, thank you.
Senator Okongo Mugene.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 531 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries regarding the postponement of Kenya Tea Development Agency Director elections in Nyamira and Kisii. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee should, 1, explain why the IEBC did not conduct the elections for KTDA directors as scheduled on Friday, 28th of June 2024, especially considering that the farmers had already gathered in the polling stations in readiness for the elections. 2, Mr. Speaker, provide evidence regarding whether the IEBC did communicate the postponement of the tea factory directors' elections to the farmers in advance, specifying the method of communication used, evaluating its effectiveness, and presenting evidence demonstrating that the farmers received the communication. 3, clarify the reasons for rescheduling the elections to Saturday, 29th of June 2024, especially given that these elections were being carried out in Nyanza, where there are many, where the residents are predominantly members of Seventh-day Adventist Church. 4, state the scheduled dates for the IBC to conduct elections for directors of the tea factories managed by KTDA that did not hold elections. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wakoli. That statement is dropped. Next order, clerk.
Order number 8, motion, the current state of the nation.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to contribute to this particular motion, which is very important to the country in this particular time. Honorable Speaker, it is unfortunate that we have lost lives. On behalf of myself and my family and Elgeyo-Marakwet County, I wish to convey my sincere condolences to the families who have lost their loved ones. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, I also wish to wish those who are in the hospitals quick recovery. And third, Honorable Speaker, as it's unfortunate that it has taken our children, our sons and their daughters, for us to realize that there are issues. I believe these issues have not just surfaced the other day, Honorable Speaker, but it's because of the unemployment that has been in the country and other injustices, especially corruption, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as a country, we need to reflect, think critically, and see how we can come out of this by ensuring that we become sensitive to some issues. Honorable Speaker, these children did not just wake up on the 25th and came to the streets. There must have been some things that have been building maybe for the last 5, 6, or 7 years. And as leaders, we failed to notice and act quickly, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, these children of ours, the GNCs, I know we have spoken here as leaders, we have accepted that we have failed, but we need to move on and see how we can regain back our country, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as one of the way forward is we want to ask the National Police Service to ensure those youths who are still in the police cells get released immediately, Honorable Speaker, from the police stations, and they cease abductions, because we know there are those, especially blockers, we are told they have been abducted, they have not been taken to court, Honorable Speaker, they needed to release them immediately, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we still have those who are still in the hospitals, and I'm happy to report, to also note that the government of Kenya Kwanza have agreed that they are going to waive all the bills or pay the bills, and those who have lost their loved ones, they'll contribute in the funeral expenses and burial expenses, Honorable Speaker, so that the families don't suffer twice, losing their children and also looking for resources to bury their children, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we need to find a way of sorting out these issues. And I know in the past we have said, because of unemployment, we can use technology to ensure that the youth get something that they can put on the table, Honorable Speaker. There is a conversation to have over 1,400 digital hubs across our wards in Kenya, Honorable Speaker. We want the National Assembly to allocate resources in these particular constituency innovation hubs, Honorable Speaker, so that the youth across the country can access internet, they can access online jobs, so that they can have something to put on the table, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we also have, I know there have been issues about corruption. We have talked about corruption for a long time. We have Anti-Corruption Commission, Honorable Speaker. I don't think they are doing enough, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this particular entity needs to be maybe reorganized, restructured, Honorable Speaker, so that they can act on serious, real corruption instead of going for petty offenders, Honorable Speaker. I remember there was a time sometimes back when there were issues with Kenya and the Corruption Commission, and Parliament, in their own wisdom, then dissolved because they were not working enough. We want to ask the Anti-Corruption Commission, please expedite, do your investigations within short time possible, take those who are corrupt to court, and they need to be seen to be charged, Honorable Speaker, and put behind the bars, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I know there is a committee, a task force that was formed recently to discuss on the issue of the public debt, and I know the courts have already pronounced themselves on suspension of that, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we are told by the National Treasury that out of 100 bob that is collected by the Kenya Revenue Authority, 61 shillings is going to bank debt. It is important that the Office of Auditor General moves with speed to do special audit on the national debt, find out this particular debt that was taken for the last 10 or 20 years, Honorable Speaker, what is it, what was it used for, how much is bending, Honorable Speaker, currently, how much are we paying? If we are paying $1 trillion every year on interest alone, then it means when are we going to complete paying this particular debt, Honorable Speaker? Because this is a serious burden that is messing up our economy, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I know there was an outcry last week because SRC came up with a memo that state officers, including members of parliament, including ourselves, Honorable Speaker, are going to get a pay rise of 7 to 10%, Honorable Speaker. And I saw in the news that I was likely to be given additional 14,000. And I want to declare in this House, Honorable Speaker, we did not ask for any pay rise, and I'm not interested to be paid any additional penny. If anything, we can revise our salaries downward, Honorable Speaker, because there are Kenyans who are going without food, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there is an issue. It was even in today's papers and yesterday's paper, Honorable Speaker. NCIC are sleeping on the job. NCIC is sleeping on the job, Honorable Speaker. We want them to do a proper audit on employees across the civil service and give us a proper data about those who are employed among the 42 or 43 tribes of Kenya in all organizations, because NCIC have the habit of releasing us piecemeal, maybe one organization, so it looks biased. We want them to do it properly and give us even ages, because I think there is a conversation, Honorable Speaker, that, 2003, 2004, in his own wisdom, the late President Kibaki increased the retirement age from 55 to 60 because they didn't have money to pay pensioners, Honorable Speaker. I think it is important that we relook at that particular issue and maybe go back, because the law has not been changed. That was just an executive order, a cassette notice. We can revert back to a retirement age of 55. So that the youth, the Gen Z, can get opportunity to be employed, Honorable Speaker. So that it's not a must that we reach 60. And there are even those who are already 60 years and they're asking for extensions, additional years. If you've not done anything useful for yourself at the age of 55 or even 50, even if you are given additional 2 years or so, it's not going to help. Honorable Speaker, we want to ask our colleagues in National Assembly, as they receive the supplementary budget, because the finance bill was referred to National Assembly, and as they get the supplementary budget, we want them to ensure that money is allocated, resources are allocated for confirmation of the 46,000 GSS teachers, because this is the group of GNCs. We want them to allocate resources also, Mr. Speaker, for our intern doctors, so that these doctors, I remember yesterday, they went to occupy Avia House, but I believe if the interns are confirmed, these issues will not be there, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, I just want to say that we support and we ask the executive to move quickly with the reforms they promised the country last week, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Eddie Okech. Senator Matthew.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to also make my contribution on this particular motion. I thank my colleagues who have really spoken, and I'm happy. I want to congratulate the leadership of the House, both the leader of majority and the leader of minority, for allowing us to speak. And when I have been watching the proceedings for the last 3 days, Honorable Speaker, when I've been watching the proceedings of this House, Honorable Speaker, I am happy that we are now speaking a conversation, and we have been told to speak from our hearts, so that we can be able to dissect, we can be able to look at the issues that have been raised by not only the Gen Zs, but the people of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, allow me to start by condoling with the families of the 41 who lost their lives, Honorable Speaker. As it has been said by my colleagues, I would also want to reiterate, it had not have to end this way. It does not have to cost the lives of people so that voices can be heard. We need not to take it literally. When many people say that the tree of freedom is watered by blood, we do not have to take it literally. That people have to die, people have to go to hospitals so that some of the issues that they are raising are heard, Honorable Speaker. So I ask for quick recovery for those in hospital. And as a House and as Parliament, would want to say that we have heard your voices. Honorable Speaker, many people, and I have heard even some of my colleagues here saying that, you know, when we were Gen Zs, this is what we used to do. It is fair to set records straight. Gen Z is a generation. You, Honorable Speaker, have never been a Gen Z and shall never be, because you are not in that particular bracket of a generation. You have to have been born between a certain time, Honorable Speaker, for you to be a Gen Z, Honorable Speaker. So it is the Gen Zs and the people of Kenya who actually have raised very pertinent issues that we must listen to. One of the issues that we have that has come out very, very clearly for the last 2 weeks in the conversation that we have in the country, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of corruption. Is the issue of corruption, Honorable Speaker. And when we speak about corruption, it is something that must prick our conscience. I am deeply, deeply, deeply disappointed. But the body that has been charged with corruption, the EACC, is now throwing words to this Honorable House, Honorable Speaker. And in my opinion, Honorable Speaker, the weak link in our fight against corruption is the EACC. Honorable Speaker, if there is a body that I would call vestigial, it is there, but of no known utility, Honorable Speaker, it will be the EACC, Honorable Speaker. This House, this particular House, Honorable Speaker, has taken a specific number of 146 files to the EACC. Nothing has been done by the EACC that they can come and show us as a report from Honorable Speaker. If Honorable Speaker, EACC wants to throw barbs at this House has an impeccable record. This House has successfully impeached 5 governors. Can we be shown by the EACC one elected leader that I have ever prosecuted, and that person is having jail, Honorable Speaker? Can we be shown just one person, not 2 people? At least this House has a record. We have impeached. Some have been returned by courts. It's okay. But we have a record. We have prosecuted here in this House, Honorable Speaker. The Public Accounts Committee of this House has given the EACC some cases that are open and shut. You do not require to be a rocket scientist, Honorable Speaker, to act on some of the issues, Honorable Speaker. And I want to just give one demonstration. With tremendous respect to the Senator for Nyamira, Senior Counsel Okongo Eric Omogeni. Honorable Speaker, last week, and members of the Public Accounts Committee are here, the Governor for Nyamira appeared before us. So in one of the expenditures that had been raised, Honorable Speaker, the Governor for Nyamira paid himself 6 million. He said that it is salary in arrears. When he was caught, and this matter was brought to the EACC, what did the EACC do? Did they prosecute him? No. Did they ask him anything? No. They just told him, we have found you stealing, please return our money, we are very sorry, don't do that again. Is that the kind of body that you are looking for, Honorable Speaker? Is that the kind of body that can come and try to lecture this kind of House, Honorable Speaker? Honorable Speaker, we, the people of Nyandarua, have written to the EACC of a matter that is of the insurance of the members of staff of the Nyandarua County government. Honorable Speaker, the county executive sat at 9 in the morning. They approved that a contract be entered with a certain insurance firm, Honorable Speaker. The same day, that contract was entered. So then EACC wants to tell us that they require 5 years to look at a matter or to look at a crime that was committed in 3 hours. If it is as easy as committing a crime in 3 hours, why is it very difficult for the EACC to spend 5 years, 9 years, whatever years? Honorable Speaker, if we can be lectured, the people that cannot lecture us shall be the EACC. They have no moral standing of speaking to this House or speaking to any person of this Republic of Kenya. And Honorable Speaker, I think it is also time that we look at the people that we have had who have been heading this particular body. I think we have, with tremendous respect, we have tried advocates. We had Justice Ringera. We have tried the professors. We had the other professor, I'm forgetting his name, Rumumba. We have tried bishops from the mainstream churches. We have tried bishops from the mainstream churches. We have tried bishops from the Pentecostal churches, Honorable Speaker. I think it is now time that we try a person of the stature of Omutata to lead the EACC, Honorable Speaker, because we have not seen any tangible action that has been taken by the EACC, Honorable Speaker. So, in our fight against corruption, EACC is one body. And since I saw them responding to the members of this House, I think, Honorable Speaker, the fairest thing is that let them come before this House. Let them appear before this whole House, Honorable Speaker, so that we can have that conversation. Let them not answer us on the media. They have been trying to sensationalize and sponsor fake and uninformed propaganda that this House has passed a law on the conflict of interest. That is why the EACC is not working. Honorable Speaker, if an agency, in fact, this is what the agencies are saying, if an agency of government can lie, and the people that are supposed to look and chase the liars, why do we need that agency? If it is indeed true, if you are to even take that conversation that they are not acting because we passed that law was passed here on the 31st of May. EACC has been there since 2004. What have they been doing before that law was passed, Honorable Speaker? And I dare say, and my colleagues will bear me witness, there is no law that we have mutilated that have allowed any senator of this House or any public servant to do business with government. There is no law that we have. If anything, we have actually, and we shall demonstrate, because that shall come as a substantive motion, Honorable Speaker. If anything, we have strengthened, and I would dare say that because I've never done business in my own capacity or even my own family with government, and none of the members of this House would have that kind of intention. So it is not time to apportion blames by anybody. The second body that I feel is the weak link in our fight against corruption, Honorable Speaker, it will be the ODPP. And that's another notorious body, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in the case of Nyamira, and allow me to use Nyamira again, 2 people found themselves in the payroll of the Nyamira County government. They were paid a total of 800,000, Honorable Speaker. So when the matter came into the public foray through the area senator and the other people who were charged with oversight, the county assembly, the county secretary wrote and said, these people are not our employees. The county public service board wrote and said, these people are not our employees. The payroll manager wrote and said, these people are not our employees. So then there was a case. When the matter was taken to court, Honorable Speaker, I am not an advocate. I am not a lawyer. I have no background in law. But there is something that they said was called no prosecute. If that was the word, Honorable. Non-prosecute, if that is the word, Honorable Speaker. And they have no intention of taking these 2 people to court, Honorable Speaker. So what becomes of the money that has been stolen of the people of Nyamira? What becomes of the people? And what we see about them is responding to Senator Sifuna on Twitter. So I actually propose, Honorable Speaker, since they are very willing to engage, let them not engage us on Twitter. Let them come before the whole House of this House, Honorable Speaker, so that we can demonstrate. Let's have a conversation. Don't throw jabs at anybody. We are just telling you the truth. You are a weak link. You have all the evidence. Had the people of Kenya not made noise against the former governor of Migori, called Obado, that guy was almost walking free. Just because he has returned little things here, now the ODPP says that we have now built consensus, just go in peace, never steal again. I mean, Honorable Speaker, if we cannot have an honest conversation with the ODPP, Honorable Speaker, then we shall have lost. There are many other independent offices, many people have spoken about them, that we need to look at. There's one body that appeared before us and has appeared before us, called the PPRA, Public Procurement Regulatory Authority. In every report that has been laid on the floor of this House, Honorable Speaker, you will never miss a county that has an irregular procurement process, Honorable Speaker. But we have never had, not even one report from the PPRA. In fact, it has to call for the initiation of either the members of the Senate or the members of the public to write to PPRA to tell them that there is something that we are seeing in a certain public entity, Honorable Speaker. These are the bodies that I am calling vestigial. They are not useful. In fact, their usefulness and their utility approaches zero power infinity. We must either do away with them or they must be very, very, very deliberate. Honorable Speaker, our young people have spoken about excesses. And I would dare say, and I'm very sorry to my colleagues who are in this House, Honorable Speaker, when we speak about excesses, we start with ourselves, as members of this committee, as members of Parliament, as members of this Senate, before we even go out. We shall believe that this conversation has sunk in the minds of the people in this House. If you are very honest, the day a clerk of your committee will call, you call a clerk of your committee because you are traveling to Mombasa, and the clerk of your committee will tell you that the only available flight is on economy, and you agree to fly on economy. You not say that you want to fly on the next available business trip, Honorable Speaker, because I don't know about the others, but I will speak for myself. Before I became a member of this House, I want to be very honest to you, Honorable Speaker, I was flying on economy. Why am I very, very special now that I have to travel on business? If there is no business, I cannot travel. To Mombasa here, just a distance of 45 minutes, Honorable Speaker. So it has to start with us, Honorable Speaker. It also amazes me. A governor who was traveling and using one vehicle now has to attend to a funeral using a convoy of 5 vehicles. The lead car has communication officers. The second car has your media. The third car is your lead car. Then your car with a flag. Then a chase car. Then another car with 7. Honorable Speaker, in a rural county like Nyandarua, or a rural county like Homa Bay, or any other county that you are speaking about, you are seeing a governor attending a funeral in a convoy that has sirens. In a county that has never, Honorable Speaker, seen a traffic jam, because I imagine that sirens are either for traffic jam or for ambulances, so that they can. It is this kind of vomiting on the people of Kenya that we are speaking about, and that is what the Gen Zs are saying. If we cannot stop these kind of excesses, Honorable Speaker, then we shall have failed the people of Kenya, Honorable Speaker. I would dare ask, why is it that when we are elected, we are very close to our people, and you are a governor or a senator of a rural county, like the county that I come from, and you actually think that you now require 8 bodyguards? Why do you require 8 bodyguards? What have you done to your people that you require to be protected with guns? When you are campaigning by yourself. When you have been elected, you require 8 bodyguards to protect you. What are they protecting? What is this thing that you have taken to your people that you don't want your people to access you? That you have to walk into a funeral. You know me, I see people walk into a funeral. A whole tent is now occupied by yourself, your bodyguards, your aides, your communication officer, your advisor. And on this issue of advisors, because I'm very happy that the president has said that they want to cut down on the cost on advisors. You know, advice, in my opinion, should look like a pregnancy. You cannot be losing cases like we have seen in the county government of Meru, and you have a legal advisor. Why do you need him? You have no tangible economic policies that we can see. Why do you require an economic advisor, Honorable Speaker? We have been saying with the matter just this afternoon that the county government of Meru will have to pay 600 million in terms of penalties and what has been awarded by court because they chased an investor from a hotel that is worth 150 million. What are we doing to our people? What are we doing to our people, Honorable Speaker? Why do we need to push this kind of money to the counties, Honorable Speaker? And this money is being spent and being used just like that. Honorable Speaker, in the quest of occupying, if you really want us, the young people, if you want us to fight the corruption, the next place that you must occupy must be the county governments. The next place that we must occupy must be the county government, Honorable Speaker. The next people that we must visit must be the governors, Honorable Speaker. Finally, because I know my time is running out, there's something that has been mentioned on education, and I want to canvass my thoughts on education, Honorable Speaker. The only thing that, in my opinion, I feel equalizes us in terms of opportunities, Honorable Speaker, would be on education. I would just, and with tremendous respect to the Senator for Siaya, I would just want to use this example, that in 1964, the Vice President of this Republic was Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. In 1964, my own mother, the late Jane Jerry, was born then. In September 2022, the son of the Vice President and the son of the peasant woman that was born in 1964 was sworn in this house as senators, both of them. Why? Because the only thing that has equalized us now is education. It is for this reason that we must try and make education as cheap as it can be, Honorable Speaker. I am very persuaded that we must do away with bursaries, Honorable Speaker. Why? Because not everybody is able to access bursaries. You know it, Honorable Speaker. When you allow politicians to be dishing out bursaries, the people that get this money are the same people. Because you campaign for your MCA, you get bursaries. You campaign for your member of parliament, you get bursaries. You campaign for your governor, you get bursaries. Honorable Speaker, at the end of it, when it is the end of the year, one kid is at home because they cannot pay school fees. Another kid is leaving school with an excess because their parents can be able to access bursaries, Honorable Speaker. Bursaries have been made a reserve of the families of politicians, girlfriends of politicians, bimbos that just walk around the politicians, Honorable Speaker. This thing must come to an end, Honorable Speaker. If this money is there, the Senator for Kiambu was able to elucidate here, Honorable Speaker, that we have money in CDF, we have money in county government, we have the governor's kitty, we have money from the ministry. Why don't we amalgamate this money so that the people of Kenya can have access to free education, Honorable Speaker? When the idea of bursaries was born, Honorable Speaker, when the first cohort went out, the one that had Tom Mboya, bursaries were not meant for the brilliant. Bursaries were not meant for anybody else. It was meant for the needy. You do not have necessarily to be brilliant to be needy. You only need to be needy for you to access education. And the only way to access, I feel very good, Honorable Speaker. I dare say in this house, one of the closest in terms of age to the Gen Zs is myself, because I'm young, Honorable Speaker. I feel very proud that Kibaki gave me free education from class 1 to class 8. Many people did not enjoy that privilege, Honorable Speaker. If we were to say that we have listened to the Gen Zs, Honorable Speaker, we must ensure that we make education free. Just when I'm just about to end, Honorable Speaker, the second last thing that I want to say is on opportunities for employment. How do you think young people are feeling when they see a member of parliament, when they see a cabinet secretary dishing out letters to people on opportunities for employment? Is that level playing ground, Honorable Speaker? Why wouldn't our young people feel sad? Why wouldn't they get mad? Why wouldn't they get angry if they are learned? And because so-and-so is a friend to so-and-so, they're employed, and I will stay for 5 years without having gotten employed, Honorable Speaker. If we want our young people to accept that we are doing anything on employment, we must make this space of employment level playing ground, Honorable Speaker. We say that we have created that % for our young people. What is happening, Honorable Speaker? Old people are walking around with agopos that they have registered with the names of young people. So our young people cannot access, because when you want a contract in the county government, first of all, they ask for 10%. You don't have it. Once you get the 10%, when they are paying you, they ask for another 10%. You don't get paid, your money gets to pending bill, and the money that you are depending on is borrowed money, Honorable Speaker. So it then puts you in a very difficult situation. Finally, Honorable Speaker, and I know it may not be very popular at this time to say, Honorable Speaker, what the people of Kenya are asking, the Agriculture Committee of this House, led by Senator James Murango.
2 minutes to wind up your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. They went around this country, Honorable Speaker, because fake fertilizer has been sold to our farmers, Honorable Speaker. Fake fertilizer has been sold to our farmers, Honorable Speaker. Now, the committee of this House has gone round. They have invited people here. We even saw them tasting fertilizer here. But 2 months later, They cannot tell us who sold fake fertilizer to the people of Kenya, Honorable Speaker. So what are we doing to our people? And we are calling ourselves the people that have been tasked with the responsibility of playing oversight, Honorable Speaker. Why does it have to take 2 months for you to tell us it is such and such cabinet secretary that sold fake fertilizer to the people of Kenya? Why is it very difficult? And I dare say this, Honorable Speaker, to my dear President, whom I really support. The people of Kenya have given you a blank check. You have now an opportunity, and the people will clap for you, to ensure that you weed out every incompetent cabinet secretary in your government, every incompetent PS in your government. You have an opportunity now. You have an opportunity now to ensure, and I'm very hopeful, Honorable Speaker, because I hear that there was cabinet on Thursday. I'm very hopeful that some people took very nice photos there, because I'm very hopeful they will never get back there, because they are incompetent, they are not able to deliver, and they are just pulling back their President, Honorable Speaker. Since the people of Kenya are
is the chairman. He asks us one question: would it have mattered for Africa that you lived? As this debate has been going on, Mr. Speaker, I've wanted to look at the eyes of all the senators of this House, Mr. Speaker, and reflect with that statement that to you, Mr. Speaker, today, to my brothers and sisters who are senators of this House, would it have mattered for Kenya that you lived? And I want to extend that same framing to the President and the Deputy President of this country and ask, would it have mattered that they lived? Because when this particular conflict started, Mr. Speaker, there are people who have taken personal stance. And indeed, these issues are personal. They are personal because when young people talk about going without food, it is personal. They are personal because when women in this country go without medicine in hospitals in the country, they are personal. Mr. Speaker, last week when we were reflecting here, and the Senator of Nairobi, Senator Sifuna, came and talked about the possibility of him having a card for expressway that has 377,000. I imagined what happens to villages that people like Senator Meth or Senator Murango comes from, where we have got dispensaries and hospitals, that you will find that they have got ambulances that don't have fuel in those ambulances. And the people in this country, Mr. Speaker, are losing lives for a simple reason. They could not be able to get a fueled ambulance. Mr. Speaker, what is happening to my country today is so sad that it made me reflect in my personal life and my personal journey here. And I wanted, Mr. President, us as members of Parliament, to also reflect on our journey personally to where we are today, because sometimes it's easy to forget that, and then we might end up seeing this notion called Gen Zs as just some young people who are protesting in the streets without having homes where they come from. And within those homes, they have got burdens that they're experiencing, that they're facing, that we might be far removed from. So that even when people are talking about dialogue, we might not be dialoguing about the real issues. Mr. Speaker, in 2003, February the 3rd, my mother got sick in the village.
Now, in the village where I come from, Mr. Speaker, we used to be tobacco farmers. And as tobacco farmers, Mr. Speaker, when you don't have the capacity to be able to grow tobacco in your own way and be able to have a number from a company that is called BAT at that time, then you end up depending on somebody else who has got more capacity than you. Now, it happened that my family did not have the capacity to be able to grow our own tobacco, Mr. Speaker, so that we were working in what was called then a GOK to one gentleman that I still owe a lot of respect to, called Joshua Otieno. He was seen as the most successful farmer in our village, Mr. Speaker, because one of the biggest assets that he owned was a bicycle, Mr. Speaker. At that time, my brothers, when we talk about the issue of education, my brothers and sisters in the village at that time were suffering outside our village to be able to get an education. So I found myself as the oldest son and with my sisters, the daughters of my mother, in the village at that time. My mother got sick, and my dad was not in the village as well. He had gone to also seek for a way of supporting the family, Mr. Speaker. When my mother got sick, Mr. Speaker, as young as I was, I did not know how to even ride a bicycle. So I went to Joshua Otieno, who used to be the person who could help us with his bicycle, and told him, help me with your bicycle, I try and get my mother to the hospital. Of course, I could not be able to ride that bicycle, but I carried my mother to the hospital, and between the 3rd and the 12th of that month, Mr. Speaker, I depended on Joshua's bicycle to take my mother to the hospital. She was there to be diagnosed with what they called chronic malaria. And on 12th in the morning, when we went to the hospital, the doctor told me that your mother cannot be treated here because this chronic malaria can only be treated in referral hospital in Migori town. We have the ambulance, but we don't have fuel. Can you be able to go and look for 2,000 shillings so we can take your mother to Migori District Hospital? Of course, I went home. I found my father. When he got home, we didn't have the 2,000 shillings, Mr. Speaker. I will never forget that image that at 11:48 p.m., I lost my mother. I lost my mother to a simple disease called chronic malaria, and I lost my mother because when we were in the village, getting an ambulance to be fueled was a problem, Mr. Speaker. Today, as we talk about Gen Zs, some people might see those young people as just people who are crazy and on TikTok and on Facebook and on all these social media spaces, Mr. Speaker. But if you sit with those young people, Mr. Speaker, you will hear of stories that mine could be the most little story of them all, Mr. Speaker. These are stories of young people who have gone to school, come back home, they find their own siblings who they might call millennials or otherwise any generation, Mr. Speaker, who have gone to school, qualified in schools, and cannot be able to make sense of life, Mr. Speaker. You go to these young people's houses, yes, some of them might be successful because their parents are successful. But most of them, Mr. Speaker, if you look at their lives, Mr. Speaker, they are everything to their parents. They are the only hope that their parents have. Mr. Speaker, we might be in this house and we must be privileged to be able to get insurance. But for some of these young people, they are the insurance for their parents. I can tell you for a fact, I've heard members of this house, that even themselves, when they're in this house, they're the pension for their parents. Their parents did not have anywhere they could be able to build. They are the insurance when their parents are sick. They send their parents medicine at home. And therefore, as we reflect now, Mr. Speaker, one thing that we as a house must acknowledge, and we want to extend this to the President of this country, Mr. Speaker, is then what is the root cause of what we are seeing in the street today in Kenya? The root cause, we know it very well, is economic emptiness and lack of income and jobs for young people in this country, and they're the bulk and majority of this country, Mr. Speaker, and they cannot get income and decent jobs, Mr. Speaker, simply because we have enabled a system where governance in this country cannot allow for capital to reach those young people, Mr. Speaker. We know that in this House, we are supposed to be the oversight authority over what is happening in ministries that all my colleagues, including Methu, just right now, spoke about ministries mishandling resources in this country, Mr. Speaker. And we know that even as we try to struggle as much as possible as a country, Mr. Speaker, there is no way government can be able to create adequate jobs for these young people. Adequate jobs can only be created together with adequate income and decent and dignified livelihoods can only be created, Mr. Speaker, when we allow the private sector of this country, Mr. Speaker, to be able to expand and grow. But, Mr. Speaker, what's happening in this country, as a young person who has come to this parliament, what is happening in this country is that we have got serious vested interest in government and governance of this country. So that there is a conspiracy between the executive of this country and the parliament of this country that when budgets are being done, when finance bills are being done, leaders are conspiring so that they can be able to do business in the budget and backbone of this country, Mr. Speaker. If there is any solution that is needed in this country, Mr. Speaker, the first that I expect the President to do is actually to audit all the companies in the registrar of companies so that we know who are doing business in this country that are making it impossible for young people in this country to be able to do business. And, Mr. Speaker, if that audit is done, you will see a clear path and a clear, well-crafted path for people in this country to create a country of state-made Kenyans versus self-made Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, where state-made Kenyans are very deliberate about putting into budget money into this, in this country that does not even go to the private sector, that only enables people in politics and people in government to be able to accumulate wealth through dubious means and projects that are never done, Mr. Speaker, in all the budgets that we are discussing, Mr. Speaker. As we speak right now, Mr. Speaker, we saw in the last government, under the current president, when he was a deputy president, Mr. Speaker, we saw the passing of what we call GAA, the government advertisement agencies, Mr. Speaker. Now, government advertisement agency made the government to be a particular player and not a regulator in the industry of advertisement in this industry, Mr. Speaker. Where young people can be able to get most jobs in this country, Mr. Speaker, because of the height of what we call technology and digital understanding, Mr. Speaker, is on digital marketing. And, Mr. Speaker, the government is running a lot of money that goes in the pocket of individuals in GAA deals to the extent, Mr. Speaker, that today, even if you look at the mainstream media, Mr. Speaker, and advertisement agencies in this country, Mr. Speaker, they are collapsing because GAA owes them tons of money that people have paid to themselves, and it's not possible for young people to be able to get those opportunities. If you look, Mr. Speaker, for instance, national media is going to fire, actually has fired 180 young people. And yes, GAA owes national media 3 billion, Mr. Speaker. If you look at Standard, Mr. Speaker, where young people have been nurtured to the extent that they can be elite digital advertisers, Mr. Speaker, you will find that in Standard, for the last almost 7 months, Mr. Speaker, I've got young people there, they interview us every day. If you go to Vibes Radio, they interview us. If you go to Spice FM, young people there interview us. If you go to the mainstream TV station, young people interview us, Mr. Speaker. For 7 months, they have not even been paid 5,000 shillings, Mr. Speaker, because they go without money because GAA owes the money that has been paid under the watch of Parliament and under the watch of the entire cabinet, Mr. Speaker. I can go on and show you about 2 billion that you see GAA owing the entire media space where young people and creatives should be excelling, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, my heart was pouring out because I saw interns sleeping outside Afia House, Mr. Speaker. In this house, we have enabled the passing of chief in this House, Mr. Speaker. And if you look at the way NHIF used to work, Mr. Speaker, you can see how Parliament and the Cabinet have conspired against Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, to do businesses. You know very well that when we did have the national, the NHIF that was working, Mr. Speaker, it used to be that money will be collected from the public. NHIF would then go and have a department that makes payments for all Kenyans when they are sick. That even necessitated the fact that NHIF had to have a system of clearing those payments, Mr. Speaker. And yet, in these two houses, Mr. Speaker, of Parliament, we passed SHIF. How is SHIF operating, Mr. Speaker? Where NHIF used to have 24 billion that was saved, Mr. Speaker, to the extent that they could be able to buy T-bills so that when they don't collect money, they could be able to pay for people in this country, Mr. Speaker. Today, that entire 24 billion is missing, Mr. Speaker. And to the extent that we know very well, and I hope the Senator of Marsabit is here, that SHIF was forced to go and procure a system that they don't need because they procured services of a private entity to be able to offer insurance. SHIF still went and spent 10 billion to procure a system that they don't need, that failed when it was stated in Marsabit, Mr. Speaker. This is a matter of public knowledge. And all these are deals and businesses, so that even Parliament has become a place of not bill-making, but deal-making, Mr. Speaker. So we must face these challenges as a people, Mr. Speaker. And one thing that the President must be able to confront, Mr. Speaker, is that this vested interest in government must stop and allow for private sector to be able to create jobs that are decent for our young people, because government will just never be able to create enough jobs. And this is confronting the President of the nation, that because of the magnitude of the crisis that we are seeing today, Mr. Speaker, the response must also be the same. It goes without saying that in physics, they say that one action must have an equal reaction to it, Mr. Speaker. It cannot be that we are going to talk about just dialogues for the sake of dialogue, Mr. Speaker. This dialogue must be on specific issues that are denying young people economic opportunity in this country, so that those issues are sorted for once and for all. And at the heart of those issues, Mr. Speaker, is the ministers or cabinet secretaries that we have in this country today. Mr. Speaker, the President must confront this reality that either you die with these few individuals or you die with the entire country. It must matter to the President to be able to give young people an explanation. Why is it so difficult, at least in areas where ministers who are extremely, extremely known in the country to have done economic crimes, to leave cabinet, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, what is there, Mr. Speaker, to explain to the country why the CS of Agriculture must continue being a CS, Mr. Speaker? And Mr. Speaker, this must come all the way to the House, so that the issue you have been fighting in this House on separation of powers, whereby we need Parliament to be able to play an oversight role and have a proper autonomous and independence operation between it and the executive, must also happen, Mr. Speaker. And one of the radical ways that the President can be able to help this country is to rethink the entire leadership of the National Assembly in particular, Mr. Speaker. Because the National Assembly, under our Constitution, has got all powers to deal with money bills, Mr. Speaker. And that is why it becomes very easy for the National Assembly to be able to mix personal interest and public interest, Mr. Speaker. I have checked at the quality of leadership in this House, Mr. Speaker. If you look at Senior Senator Boni Alwale, Mr. Speaker, as the majority whip in this House, Mr. Speaker, at what point do you compare Senior Boni Alwale with Honorable Osoro in the National Assembly, where Honorable Osoro is going to look at issues of budget and finance bills in this country, Mr. Speaker? When you look at our majority leader here, Mr. Speaker, the gentleman called Arun Cheriot, who has actually brought this bill, Mr. Speaker, the depth and the passion for the country, Mr. Speaker, at what point do you compare Arun Cheriot with Kimani Ichung'wah in National Assembly and then say that we're going to sober assembly, Mr. Speaker? When you look at people like Deputy Majority Leader, Mr. Speaker, Senator Tabitha Keroche, a lady of valor and towering spirit of entrepreneurship, Mr. Speaker, who has run serious business and we have seen in this country, Mr. Speaker. At what point, Mr. Speaker, do you compare? I'm even lost of words, Mr. Speaker. I'm lost of words, Mr. Speaker. The president must confront this reality. We must see as young people a shake-up in National Assembly that has basically enabled 100% of the problem of not listening to the young people of this country, Mr. Speaker. And we must see that shake-up also, Mr. Speaker, in the
2 minutes to wind up your thoughts.
Mr. Speaker, as I wind up, I also want to invite Gen Zs to a conversation that we are a constitutional democracy. The country must run. The country must be governed. Do not be tempted that in the fruit of this wonderful movement that you have had, then you get compromised in traditional politics where people can end up hijacking this kind of movements for popularity's sake and make it either tribal or just pure popularity, Mr. Speaker. I've seen you vilify the president alone, but you should know that now under our constitution, we have got the presidency. The president is not the only person who is liable. Even the deputy president is liable and must also be called to order, Mr. Speaker. It is the deputy president of this country who first saw the people of this country, not as people, but as goods and services, Mr. Speaker. He saw the people of this country as commodities and made us a country that was made to be believed to be a company, not a country, Mr. Speaker. And he saw us as Rabuon, Mr. Speaker. He saw us as Mogoka. He saw us as Waru. He saw us as Omena, Mr. Speaker. And now, the commodities are speaking. He must know. The commodities are speaking. The Rabuon have started speaking. The Omena have started speaking. And he must now realize that this country is not a company where we talk about shareholding and state-made Kenyans versus self-made Kenyans, but we are a country of people of value, and even him must be held to account so that we do not start a place whereby people want to start fighting Kikuyus the other side or fighting Somalis this other side, because all those people are also a part of the recipe of why this country works. Because I've lived.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to join my colleagues also to discuss the situation in the country. And first and foremost, I want to send my heartfelt condolences to all the bereaved families and wish them solace in their own hearts. And for those who are injured, I wish them a quick recovery. Unfortunately, whatever has happened in this country in a very short time has shown me and really made me to have a very heavy heart. Honorable Speaker, for those of us who live in the borderlines, we know much about what happens in our neighborhoods. You have seen what happened in Somalia. 30 years, 35 years down the line, up to now, it has never settled. You have seen what is happening in Congo, what is happening in Sudan, what is happening in Ethiopia. So the kind of things that is now happening in this country is actually worrying. It is right for the young men and women, the so-called Gen Zs, to do what they have done. Because for many in this country, kings are actually very resilient people, very patient, people who understand, people who obey the law. But when the things are done and people not listened, these kind of issues, the consequences actually this kind of action. And therefore, I want to tell the young men and women, as much as we appreciate what they have done, they have woken us up. Some of us, some of the leaders have lost even their senses of feeling are now back to their senses. And they know what is happening, what will happen in this country. When you see somebody who has been a minister the other day actually walking across borders, lost his kids, when you see mothers walking, crying with the children, and they don't know where to go, crossing borders, that is a time for those of us who witnesses that will know what peace means. And therefore, for the last 1 week, I've been hearing a lot of, popular, kind of statements. The leaders must take responsibility for the kind of, statement that we're making. It might be sweet today. You may be heard by your electorates. They might want to applaud you. But of course, when the consequence comes, when the action has been taken, and when this country goes to dogs, then that's the time you'll know whether you're a president, whether you're an MP, whether you're not. Then we all feel the consequences of our actions. Honourable Speaker, one thing is actually, this country leadership is actually a country that is actually, leaders are actually reactive by nature. Even the president is actually reactive by nature. You only react to situations. And that cannot be able to help anybody. There has been a lot of problems in this country. People have been promised paradise. The young men and ladies today who are demonstrating have been told that once these governments come in, when we take the leadership, the youth will be employed, they'll be given money, the better education, jobs. But 1.5 years down the line, things have changed. The paradise that have gone has become a hell in the world. Youth are unemployed. People are employed. A lot of impunity being used. There's a lot of discrimination. Money is being looted left and right. The other day we were being told that the government made the coffers empty. Then suddenly in 1 year's time, people are carrying gun bags, money with their gun bags in Harambes. So where is this money coming from? If money has been looted by the previous regimes. Honourable Speaker, there's no doubt that this country, all of us, the leadership, must go back to the table and listen to one another. And the first and foremost thing that we need to talk about is for this country to heal, to come together, and believe that we can do better. This is a very rich country. This is a very beautiful, that we love it. We have no other homes to go. So let us do this beautiful country to the dogs. Honourable Speaker, what is happening today is that everybody wants to make easy money to the advantage of the poor, to the advantage of disadvantaged people. Every leader wants to make money. The institutions, the oversight institutions, the parliament has been captured. We have been called in the State House, we have been called by your parties to do ABCD. We don't reason. You are elected by people. You are not elected by the president. You are not elected by your party leader. So every morning when there's a bill, you are summoned to party office or the State House. You have been elected by people, not by the State House people or by your party leader. And the consequences of that kind of, blindly following the leadership, party leaders, and being so, obedient to the party is what we are now, the consequences that we are facing today. Bills have been done with impunity here in this office, these houses. Bills have been rushed. We are not even allowed to think, to reason together. The bills that we're making these houses, the two houses, is actually being rehearsed every hour. We have been told to say yes, aye, and I will say aye. And this is the consequence today we are facing. How do we not listen to? I mean, how do we listen together? Have we got listen together? When the problems started, the time the house levy issues came, we all talked about these same issues. The people complained, the youth complained, everybody complained. The Oversight pronouncement of projects where the money is not even available. The jobs that we said we are going to create, which is not achievable. Then you expect this kind of businesses and this kind of upheavals to happen. Honorable Speaker, I think what is happening, what I want to tell is, if this kind of situation continues, there will be upheaval in this country. The jobs we are looking for will not be available. Crime will increase. Kenya is sending its soldiers to Haiti. Haiti is actually a country 7,000 kilometers from here. The consequences of what's happening today, where our officers are going there, the police officers, is because of this kind of business. The youth have, there was upheaval. The government, I mean, the country is taken over by goons. It's rape and robbing people. Therefore, I want us to learn from the mistakes that we have done and to correct these things. Honorable Speaker, as it is, we need to have a major change. Because, as I said, our oversight institutions have failed this country. Anti-corruption, I don't know who will oversight anti-corruption. Parliament, I don't know who will oversight the Parliament. Office of the DPP, you see cases, corruption cases taking too long. The Golden Bag corruption, I mean, that's taken many years, and everybody wants free. Those guys who, I don't know, looted a lot of money, and I don't know those dams, they have gone free. They've been released by DPP office and the judiciary. Parliament is making punitive laws. And corruption is saying, just dragging on the legs, I mean, on the feet. So we need an oversight institution that oversights the oversight institutions like Parliament and all these things. I don't know who will do it, whether it will be done by Ombudsman. I don't know where we're going to have an institution that will oversee all of us. But as it is, I think this country has failed to reason together. Honorable Speaker, one thing is actually, now that the President has told us, Kenya is actually undergoing a revolution. It might be, you might see it as, as a joke. But let's say what's happening now is a revolution. If you remember what happened in the Arab Springs, what has happened in Sudan, what has happened in Egypt, this is the kind how it is started. And I want to tell young ladies and men who went to the street, we applaud them for waking us up. But I think I want them to, actually, because they have been infiltrated by goons. Whatever objective they may have, the goons have infiltrated them. And this kind of mess, they're looting in the town. The shops they're breaking, and the shop that is being looted actually belongs to the Gen Zs. Those who sell the electronics, those who sell the mobiles, are all young men and women. So have we lost or gained anything so far? We lost so much. Honorable Speaker, one thing I want to say is this country needs healing. We need to talk about taxation policies because, the biggest thing we are doing, the president one day wakes up and announced tax increase. You announce the next day, tax levies, fuel levy increase. You announce the next day, roads being constructed, road levy, fuel levy. And anything that you tax especially when it comes to fuel and all these things. You expect to affect everybody across the board. We might need to raise money, yes, we have no problem with it. But you must at least also weigh the alternative options. This country is a very rich country. We have not explored on agriculture. This country actually is undeveloped. Kenya has now become a consumer. We only consume food that we import from our neighborhood. We have beautiful land, potential land that is idle. Men and women have grabbed big land because it's excess. They don't even know what to do with it. They are waiting for a day that they can sell it at higher prices. But the money and the other Kenyans who could produce food don't have the land. So I think we need a land distribution again. We must go back to the drawing board. People who have excess land should give back land to people who can plant. The young men and women who are not employed, if they get the land, they're going to tilt it and produce food and employ themselves. For those who have excess land, please, we want this country, these people to go give back land. The land belongs to Kenyans. If we want to have, as a bank for future harvest or getting more money, then I think it's the right time that we do land redistribution. Honorable Speaker, one other thing is actually, as I said, we need to have creation of employment. Employment does not mean that people must be employed only in offices. Employment can become many ways. Self-employment. If you give these same young men and women some money to go and do business, you'll see all over Nairobi CBD, we have so many stalls that are run by these same groups. And they're doing very well. They travel all the way to China. They go to Dubai. They bring in commodities. But the problem is when they come to the airport, they cannot even make a break even for profits. They've been taxed. They've been harassed. So we need to improve and give kind of incentive to those who are working hard. We give incentives to those who want to bring their commodities here. These are all Kenyans, actually, where they're not coming from outside. But when you want to tax a small goods that have been brought by the youth, that airport is actually becoming a place for harassing people. Investors are running away from us and going to our neighbors. So taxation does not make the country rich. So we want us to improve on the creation of employment. Actually, corruption is a cancer in this country, done with impunity. So one other thing is, Honorable Speaker, we don't know where to run to. In case now, even in this parliament, when we call the corrupt people here, the governors and everybody who have been said that they have stolen money, they listen to the committee. The Auditor General brings his report. The COB brings the report. From there, it ends there. No follow-ups, no prosecution, no nothing. And the impunity continues. So I think we need to do better in this country. Honorable Speaker, what I want to tell my colleagues is, as leaders, we need to be a bit serious. We must be responsible to us, and must be answerable to the public that elected us. This country needs heavy investment. I know there are a lot of loans that we've collected without any proper planning. We need to go back to the drawing board and say how best we can be able to create jobs in this country. Learning institutions are dead. Education actually is obsolete. What we are learning today, we're hearing a lot of every year, every 10 years, there's a new curriculum. CBC, I don't know, 844, all these things. The neighborhood, our neighborhood, Uganda and Tanzania, the same curriculum is there. So if the curriculum has to change, we have to change to a job creation kind of, the job opportunities. That is, we tell the university guys to be able to change their curriculums, to look at the markets, the ITs, a lot of things that can at least be able to create jobs for the youth. But we're following up obsolete curriculums that will not help this institution, this country. education actually is becoming unaffordable. It's just expensive, unnecessarily expensive. Healthcare is very expensive. Not every Kenyan can afford any treatment because everything is commercialized. You go to a pharmacy, there's no control of budget, of price. You go to a doctor's, they charge you exorbitantly. It's so expensive. So the poor man and poor lady cannot afford healthcare. We're being told that we're going to be given free healthcare. NHF almost dead. It has become now a place for getting money for the politicians. Every campaign time, people withdraw money there. Money is being misused. The taxpayer money is being misused. You pay for health care. You don't have even drugs in the hospitals. We have devolved functions for health. The money, 126 billion is given to the health, Ministry of Health now, the new budget. Where are you taking all that money? And you have only five hospitals, level 6 and 5. The rest of functions have gone to counties. And the money is being held in the National Assembly, at the national level. You have so many institutions that duplicate its functions. In the Ministry of Water, we have almost many authorities, 3 or 4. We have water agencies, and they're all doing the same functions. The county is doing water, the agencies are doing water, the authorities are doing water. Where are we going? This is the same money, the taxpayers' money. Then we have so many unfunctional regional bodies. Huh? No, the water board, Wajir Nini, and Southern Wasanyiro, coast development authorities, so many authorities. So the money, the little money that have been put to a better place so that we can have a better output is actually divided to be stolen and for paying for wage bills, which is just unbelievable, so high. So I think with those few remarks, I want to applaud the President also, now that he has come back to his senses. Today, I was hearing that there's 6 days dialoguing, where even the Raila was there and everybody was there. So I think what I want to tell is that I want to tell Kenyans, please, whatever you're going to do, as much as we are suffering, we also need to think of our future, the future of this country. With those few remarks, I want to thank I want to support the motion. Thank you.
Senator Shakila Abdalla.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa nafasi hii na mimi kutoa kauli yangu. Kwanza nitoe rambirambi zangu za pole kwa wale waliopoteza maisha yao katika hawa vijana wetu wakati wa maandamano. Pili pia niseme pole kwa wale ambao wanaugua wako kwenye mahospitali. Tunawaombea afueni, wapate afya yao irudi kamili na warudi kwenye shughuli zao. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii nchi yetu ina shida 3. Na hizo shida 3 ndio inasababisha hii nchi kutotawalika ama kuwa na misukosuko. Shida ya kwanza Mheshimiwa Spika ni ukabila, ya pili ni ufisadi, ya 3 ni ukosefu wa usawa, inequality kwa kimombo. Hii nchi na hawa Gen Z ambao wamekuja Mheshimiwa Spika, wamekuja kutondoshea haya mambo 3. Kutuonyesha kwamba ikiwa tutaendelea na haya mambo 3 basi hakuna pahala tutaenda. Wametuonyesha wao hawako na ufisadi wala hawana ukabila na hawanataka usawa. Na ikiwa sisi kama nchi tutafuata hii filosofia ya hawa Gen Z, basi bila shaka tutaleta mabadiliko katika nchi yetu na nchi itakuwa inaweza kutawalika. Mheshimiwa Spika, vijana hawa ni vijana wamesoma, ni vijana hawana balaa, ni wale vijana ambao walipata elimu ya bure, elimu ambayo ilikuwa ya maana maradufu wakati wa Kibaki akiwa na msaidizi wake Mheshimiwa Kalonzo. Kwa hivyo kitu tunachoomba ni hawa vijana wawe watachukuliwa kwa wasichukuliwe nguvu na mapolisi, bali ni vijana washirikiane na wao, polisi washirikiane na wao, na pia waachwe kufanya Speaker, hawa vijana wametoka si kwa sababu ya finance bill, ni kwa sababu katika maeneo yao wanayoishi. Sababu nyingi zinazowakwaza mheshimiwa, nikitaja chache. Kwanza ni kwa sababu ya ongezeko la school fees. Vijana utakuta wengi hawasomi, wamefukuzwa, wako majumbani wanarandaranda. Utakuta ongezeko la mambo ya university, pia umeme umeongezeka, mambo ya housing levy, ushuru umeongezeka maradufu. Utakuta hawa vijana mara nyingi hawana njia ya kujihami kwa vovote. Na vile vile pia ukiangalia vijana kama hawa, utapata ya kwamba wanaangalia, ukisema ukosefu wa usawa, ni kwamba nitatoa mfano wa makazi. Utaenda ofisi ukute kazi kuanzia juu mpaka chini ni kabila moja ama mbili. Na Kenya tuko na makabila zaidi ya 40. Utakuta mheshimiwa, nitakupa mfano bwana Speaker, kule Lamu Port. Ile Lamu Port kuna vijana wetu 100 walichukuliwa miaka 4 iliyopita wakiwa ni kama macasuals. Na mpaka leo vijana hao ni vibarua, hawajawahi kuandikwa permanent. Na ni kwa sababu utakuta watu wanakuja nyuma, wako pale KPA wanachukuliwa, ati hii ni kwaya ya watu 100 wanakuja wanachukuliwa, wanaandikwa permanent and pensionable. Wale vijana wako pale miaka 4 bado wako vibarua. Ukosefu wa usawa kama huo unafanya vijana kuleta sintofahamu na taharuki. Mheshimiwa, ile poti kuhamishwa Mombasa pia, hiyo ni njia moja ambayo pia ilileta unyonge na udhaifu mkubwa Mombasa, kuonekana kwamba ni kama maonevu. Kwa sababu ile ndio rasilimali ambayo iko pale Mombasa, lakini unakuta ilihamishwa ikapelekwa sehemu zingine, na watu Mombasa na vijana bado wanarandaranda, hakuna makazi. Nitakupeleka mheshimiwa, ukienda Witu ni division. Ikifika saa 12 inawekwa curfew. Wa upande huo hapiti huku, wa huku hapiti huku. Kwa nini watu kama wale wawekewa curfew? Kwa sababu wanalindwa watu wengine fulani pale. Kwa hivyo mambo kama hayo ya ukosefu wa usawa ndio yanaleta hii shida ya hawa Gen Z. Wamekuja kuamka na wameona kwamba hii nchi ni lazima kuwe na usawa, kwa sababu sote ni wa Kenya. Ufisadi mheshimiwa Speaker, ufisadi utakuta wanakuwa sacrifice ni wale small ship. Anaenda kushikwa director, anaenda kushikwa manager, na waziri ako free. Director na manager wanachukua order kutoka kwa wakubwa wao, na wanaambiwa isipoenda hivyo basi wao ndio wataumia. Na wakishachukua zile order, maneno inabadilika, kukichafuka inakuwa wao ndio sacrificing God. Kwa hivyo mheshimiwa Speaker, huu ufisadi pia hata hapa bunge, wabunge wanaitwa kwa PG, wanaenda wanaambiwa lazima huu mswada mupitishe. Kwa nini mbunge akubali aseme mimi nimepewa milioni 2 kupitisha huu mswada? Kwa nini rais atoe milioni 2 akijua kama huo mswada ni mzuri, ahonge mbunge ili aupitishe? Kwa hivyo hiyo yote ni ufisadi kutoka juu mpaka chini. Huu ufisadi na tunataka kusema kwamba ikiwa ni EACC pia, ukienda EACC kupeleka kesi unaulizwa unamjua nani, ama huyu umemleta kwa hii kesi anamjua nani? Kwa sababu mimi mwenyewe niko na ushahidi. Wakati nilipokuwa chair wa Child Welfare Society of Kenya, nilipata hii organization iko na ufisadi wa hali ya juu. Nilipoenda kupeleka kesi EACC pamoja na ushahidi, waliniuliza kwamba huyu mama ako connected na nani kabla hawajamgusa. Kwa hivyo haya mambo ya ufisadi yanaanzishwa huko juu yakiendelea chini. Si ati ni kitu ambacho kwamba ni ofisa ama ni mtu mdogo ameamua kujifanyia yale mambo, anapewa order. Hata hao wabunge wako hapo wakipitisha ile kitu, walipewa order na rais kwamba hii kitu ni lazima ipite, na wakahongwa. Kwa hivyo kama ni kusema ukweli, ni ukweli usemwe na mambo yajulikane wazi wazi. Mheshimiwa Rais, Mheshimiwa Spika, tunasema kwamba ufisadi ikiwa utaendelea na ikiwa rais hatajaribu kung'ang'ana na ufisadi, manake ndio ufisadi mkubwa, basi tujue hakuna pahala tutaenda hii nchi. Kwa sababu wale ambao ni mafisadi sahihi, rais amejitokeza kimasomaso kuwalinda na kuwa protect. Kwa hivyo ina maana hajaamua kupigana na ufisadi kama rais wa nchi. Tunataka rais ajaribu, apambane, na kama hawezi atoe nafasi, wanaume wachukue hiyo nafasi, wafanye kazi. We need change in this country. Tunataka mabadiliko, na mabadiliko tumeletewa na vijana, na wasirudi nyuma. Tunawaunga mkono, tuko na wao. Tumesema kwamba hawa vijana waende hivyo hivyo, na wameonyesha umahiri na wameonyesha ungwana ya kwamba hawana haja ya mali ya mtu, hawana haja ya kuiba wala kuharibu. Wao wanataka haki yao, na haki ni lazima ipatikane. Mheshimiwa Spika, nikimalizia, mimi si mtu wa maneno mengi. Nataka kuambia vijana wachukue kura. Wachukue kura kwa wingi. Hiyo ndio silaha ya kupambana na adui. Asanteni sana. Nimeshukuru. Naunga mkono huu mswada. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Asante. Sasa tunampata Senator Mbugua George.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this very important motion. Mr. Speaker, allow me to appreciate your office and the majority and the minority leaders for giving us this opportunity so that we can speak on the status of our country. Allow me also, Mr. Speaker, to send my condolences to the people, both the Gen Zs and the police and the general public who perished during this time of these skirmishes. Mr. Speaker, the events surrounding the debate, the passing and the withdrawal of the finance bill were unprecedented. We've never had this issue, we've never seen our young people coming out in the numbers they came out. And Mr. Speaker, it marked a turning point in the governance of this country. Honorable Speaker, I would want to take this opportunity to thank the young people because they have woken up, they have made the leadership of this country to wake up and to decide to change the course this country was heading to. Honorable Speaker, the finance bill was just a trigger of the many things which have not gone well in this country. And the young people came out clearly telling us that they are not doing these things for themselves only. They were doing for their parents, their brothers and sisters, and those people probably who don't have the energy as they do to come out and speak the way they did. I thank them for that. Mr. Speaker, this country for many years has had to deal with the problem of inequalities. The gap between the poor and the rich have been widening to the extent that we've agreed that there are those people who are called wananchi and wanyanchi. And what the young people are telling us is that these things must change. Honorable Speaker, the Gen Z have said in very clear language that they don't want so many stories. They want action. And Honorable Speaker, I will attempt to bring 3 action points which I think would help to alleviate the problems of the young people. Honorable Speaker, Article 54 and 55 of the Constitution addresses the issues of the young people of this country and also the issue of the people with disability in this country. And in the attempt to actualize these articles, Mr. Speaker, Parliament, in its own wisdom, enacted the Access to Government Procurement Act of 2015, whereby, as a law, it was decided that 30% of all government procurement will go to the marginalized groups, that is the youth, the women, and the persons with disability. But what has happened, Mr. Speaker, we all know, because we live in this country, that this law has never been actualized as it was intended. Honorable Speaker, just to give you an example, we operate a budget of about 3 trillion. And if we assume that 30% of that go to development, it means we have about 1 trillion which goes to the purchase of goods and services. And if this law was to be followed to the letter, about 300 billion would go to these marginalized groups. Honorable Speaker, our honorable colleague has talked about the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority. These are the people who are supposed to make sure that this act is adhered to. I think it is important as an action point, Mr. Speaker, that we call these people here and they tell us what is wrong, why have they not been able to actualize this so that the young people of this country, the people with disabilities, and the women benefit as the parliament of this country intended to. Also, as an action point, Mr. Speaker, because the young people have spoken and they have said they want to see action, I would urge the government and this House, because we just entered the new finance budget cycle, we must prioritize in the first quarter that the procurement which the government will engage in should go to the youth and the other marginalized groups. Honorable Speaker, when these young people were demonstrating and they were coming to Parliament, you could see the anger, the determination. And then I pondered and asked, what is this which have made these people very angry? And I thought, probably among this young generation, there are people among them who are educated by their parents, and their parents spent everything, probably even sold their land, because we've been told in this country since we were young that usome, utapata kazi mzuri, na utaishi maisha mazuri. And these young people went to school in the hope of getting jobs and helping their parents. But they were faced with helplessness. Mr. Speaker, Article 55 of our Constitution, as read together with the Persons with Disability Act of 2013, reserved 5% of employment in all government ministries and parastatus to persons with disability. And if I can read for you, Mr. Speaker, one article said that this was to be actualized progressively. 10 years down the line, Mr. Speaker, according to the status report, which was just released the other day on the status report on disability, this act has not been properly implemented. In the report, Mr. Speaker, we came to learn that over 240 government agencies in this country have never employed any single person with a disability, yet we have a law. And the excuse they give is the Constitution says it has to be implemented progressively. And because, Mr. Speaker, the youth have said that we need action, at some point, maybe these are a constitutional moment where we have to look at the weaknesses of some of the laws we have. And I think it's time we remove that term progressive so that we can be able to enforce this. In that said report, Mr. Speaker, out of the entire workforce of the Republic of Kenya, only 1.32% are persons with disability. So when you see some of these young people with a lot of anger, you imagine that their children whose parents were disabled and they thought they would help them, but it could never come to be. Mr. Speaker, I was very happy the other day when I heard His Excellency the President saying it is time that we wind up some of the parastatus which are performing the same function. In that note, Mr. Speaker, I want to bring to the attention of this House that when it comes to matters disability in this country, Parliament enacted the National Council for Persons with Disability Act 2003, which is the legally mandated body to handle matters to do with disability. Also in this country, Mr. Speaker, we have another fund called the National Fund for the Disabled of Kenya, which is registered as a the Trustees Perpetual Succession Act, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this body received government money over the last years, over the last 20 years, and it has never been subjected to any parliamentary oversight. This institution, in spite of receiving hundreds of millions of shillings from the Exchequer, it has never been audited by the Auditor General. Mr. Speaker, when I raised a question on the floor of this House so that we can engage this body, it took a whole year before the trustees could agree to appear before the committee. And when they came, Mr. Speaker, and we asked them what they do, they act as an investment company, and all the money they have been receiving, they have bought buildings, and whatever goes to help the persons with disabilities is a mere 30%. Mr. Speaker, I want to bring to the attention of this House that among the other things which shocked us when the trustees of this fund appeared to us, they have put a whole Kenya shillings 780 million in a fixed account. This is taxpayers' money, which was meant to help the persons with disability. As an action point, Mr. Speaker, I would be calling on this House that we call these two institutions here and they address how they have been spending the money given to them. Mr. Speaker, I would be imploring on this House, Mr. Speaker, that we must insist that this money, which is taxpayers' money, put in fixed deposits, be immediately made available and distributed to the various disabled groups in this country. Honorable Speaker, Mahatma Gandhi once said that the true measure of any society can be found on how it treats its most vulnerable members. And these are the children, the elderly, and the persons with disability, Mr. Speaker. As the National Assembly attempts to amend the finance bill, Mr. Speaker, we would be requesting that they don't touch the cash transfers which helps these vulnerable people in our society. On the issue of public debt, Honorable Speaker, the executive, through the President, has attempted to audit what Kenya owes to other countries. And Mr. Speaker, that issue put parliaments in a very awkward position. Because to an average Kenyan, what they know is before any debt is taken, Parliament is involved. Parliament should know which institution, which country is lending us money, how much they are lending us, at what interest, what is the repayment period. So when we reach a situation where, Mr. Speaker, it's like we don't know how much we owe, then the Kenyans are asking, what is the role of Parliament? This House, through the Parliamentary Service Commission, Mr. Speaker, have employed the best minds in the Republic. At a click of a button, Mr. Speaker, you would have expected that Parliament can come out and say, according to us, as the representatives of the people, this is the amount of money that the government of Kenya owes, and these are the people who have lent us money. But it should never be that we are where we are, that we don't know how much we owe. This one, Mr. Speaker, put the institution of Parliament into a very awkward position. Mr. Speaker, I also want to address the issue of deprecation of duties. When we devolved through our Constitution 2010, Mr. Speaker, and we created the counties, very, very many functions are duplicated. When you go to our counties, Mr. Speaker, you find an agriculture officer paid by the national government, another one by the county government. You'll find a children officer paid by the county government, another one by the national government. I think it is time, Mr. Speaker, that Senate take the lead and audit the 2020 Constitution and ask ourselves, is it really sustainable? What are the weaknesses that we've had over the last 12 years? Because honestly, Mr. Speaker, things are not working. The young people spoke very clearly. And as I repeat, and they said they want action. It is now upon us, the leaders of today, that we must sit down, and I'm happy that is what we are doing. Mr. Speaker, even as we handle the issue of Gen Z, those of us who are planning to go into senior positions, we must be prepared that yes, the Gen Zs are there, but after them, the generation Alpha are coming. These are even more. It is a high time that we realize that in our public engagements, we must bring everything on the table. There is nothing to hide, because this country, Mr. Speaker, belongs to all of us and more so to our children. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to support this motion, and then thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Senator Manzo Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very important motion. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the two leaders of the House for coming up with this motion and for summarizing it very well. Mr. Speaker, what happened on 25th of last month is unprecedented in this country. Young people go to demonstrate peacefully, Mr. Speaker, but the moment there are peaceful demonstrations and the police think that they should be dispersed, then under the Public Order Act and this regulation they are under, which are actually 20 years old, the last ones were done by former Attorney General Amos Wako, other consequent ministers did not. But even with those old regulations, and even with Public Order Act and the Penal Code, there has to be a proclamation, loud and clear in a speaker, by escorting police of a level of an Inspector General, that the peaceful demonstrations have turned rioters, and therefore people must disperse. After 15 minutes, that proclamation order is supposed to be repeated. And then now, whoever doesn't disperse, Mr. Speaker, then action can be taken. What I expected the police to do is just guard businesses and let the demonstrators do their thing, and I believe no one would have died. Unfortunately, we have lost 41 people, and quite a number of people are in hospitals. In Makueni, Mr. Speaker, we are burying 4 people. We buried one last Saturday, and another one is being buried today. There is a funeral on next Friday of a young man who was shot actually by an OCS, and on Saturday there is another one. We have people who are still missing and are not known where they are. So my condolences to the families who have lost their dear ones, and also wishing quick recovery to those in the hospital with all manner of injuries, from head injuries to bullet wounds, Mr. Speaker. I really want to say that although the President has promised to bury the deceased, up to now, we buried Rex last Friday in Machakos, a young man who was going to work. But because he happened to have been in Rastafaris and happened to have passed near the crowds, a police officer decided to shoot him. And after shooting him, when the young people cried that he could get help and should be taken to hospital, and even wanted to help them with their doctors, the policeman, who is very well known and has not been charged so far, Mr. Speaker, said let the young man die. So they watched him bleed to death, yet he had just injuries at the leg, which would have been salvaged. But therefore, so there is no compensation yet. There's no reprieve. There's no one who has been taken to court. And there's no one who has been sacked or any action taken against that particular. So I'm sure the JNCs are watching, and this is one of the issues they really want to deal with as time goes by. Mr. Speaker, the cause of this was the finance bill. And the finance bill, public participation took place. And I remember at KICC, Kenyans really pleaded with the state and with the parliament. But unfortunately, with the finance bill, in fact, long time ago, during the days of Moi, the Minister for Finance, after reading budget, the next day you will hear price list given for beer and for this and that. That doesn't happen today exactly. But, Mr. Speaker, the finance bill is designed at Treasury with the experts, some from international organizations which fund us, then goes to Cabinet, then comes to the House. The House goes to do public participation. So the input of the people, unfortunately, very little was adopted, and very little has been adopted over the years. The same bill now came to the House, and the usual lobby took place, and members of Parliament, the majority voted yes, and irritated the young people because they did not imagine the hardships life will face. Mr. Speaker, I have engaged some of these people who are in these demonstrations. And most of them, Mr. Speaker, are graduates. They come from poor families. Even as graduates, they have tried to join the army. They have been asked for bribes. Police, the same. Any of KWS. And some of them, Mr. Speaker, some of the stories I've received from constituents from Makueni, they've even sold land to raise the bribe of 300,000. After you pay the bribe, you cannot see the people you pay the bribe, and your child is not taken either to the army, police, or forest, or KWS. And therefore, you end up with a very depressed young person with all the talents, surrounded by poverty, unable to fight poverty, and watching now the cost of living rising. And they have told me, Mr. Speaker, they rather die doing something. They rather die visiting us here. They rather die visiting the House of the Hill. They rather die visiting the judiciary, or those they think have let them down. And that's a very difficult position to correct. And quite a number, a majority of them, quite a number, have that idea that they rather die doing something than just commit suicide or do something else. So that level of depression, Mr. Speaker, has been compounded by when they saw the church support politics in an unfair manner. And also, they've seen the wasteful lifestyles of some of us in government. Some of us who already are doing many things. And it's also very expensive to move government from one place to another, even when they are doing important things. A good example is a recent visit to the US, Mr. Speaker. Really, some of the people went to the US, even if it was a paid-up trip by a benevolent person. I'm sure the governors had to spend their own monies for the days they stayed there, even some extended. There were very many idlers in that trip. And even one of the very frustrating things to many young people here is the issue of disability, which has been talked to by the wonderful senator. And I participated in the 1998 bombing where a lot of people became disabled. And we summoned the body dealing with disability here, Mr. Speaker. And the stories they gave were horrifying. We asked them why they're not accommodated, even these ones who were bombed. Truly, government has failed people in that regard. Most of these children were born, were either a year old or were born after. And the ones who were a year old or so, quite a number of them, including the driver of Mr. Kamodo, had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. That 1-year-old of 1997, who is now a Gen Z, never saw the father ever be compensated, who woke up to go to work, but never came back, having been bombed and having died in the bomb. A lot of the people were just transiting. Every single county in this country was affected. And all these people have gone to court, people have been in hospital, they have been frustrated over the years. Yet, when this trip was done for the US, the people we sent from the committee or the people we send from this house and any other government person we engage. In fact, we engaged the minister in charge of foreign affairs. The embassy in Washington was very frustrating on this particular matter when we went to Washington. And many other government departments have been. So what do you expect people who have relatives they have been taken care of and have seen poverty and suffering all the years and nobody listens? What do you expect them to do? So it goes on, and then all they can see is lifestyles which are extravagant on leaders, instead of every leader cutting costs and getting to help the people. When you come to this particular finance bill, although the Speaker for National Assembly has promised that it is going to be dealt with later, and although something very unusual has happened, the President, after lobbying for the passing of the bill, decided not to sign it, but sent it back to be deleted clause by clause. He really threw the members of National Assembly under the bus. It is like somebody who has vomited, be told to take back their vomit. We remained here as the Senate. They ran away. They don't want to come back, for there are no proper facilities to deal with the whole two houses right now. But today then, if you are to follow the, an act of parliament, and under Article 115, which has not yet been interpreted by the courts, and there was contestation from Honorable Otiende, who wanted it repealed instead of be deleted. Mr. Speaker, then that law, 14 days have lapsed, could become law today. What is happening is that by the fear of Gen Zs, no one can announce it has become law, no one can implement it. But I hope when Parliament comes to delete it, then at some point, the National Assembly must still come up with another finance bill. But the real legal act is to repeal, is not to do any other thing. Mr. Speaker, so that others could also contribute, there is still high cost of living. The finance bill which was proposed did not help either. I have seen the Minister for Roads insisting on increasing fuel levies and trying to do public participation, which is cosmetic. This will still increase the cost of living. Some of the things the Gen Z contested have now been enacted in the region, and we are part of the deals of the region. We have conventions in East Africa, and therefore some of these costs will still come up to us. When it comes to dealing with justice, you have heard of the role of ODPP. It has been very controversial. ESCC, fighting of corruption. We know the nolle prosequi, which have been entered when there is sufficient evidence and they are willing prosecutors to prosecute. But a political deal is arrived at, and something happens, and somebody who is known to have looted from the people's coffers goes scot-free and goes on even to join politics and continue messing it up, Mr. Speaker. There has been seen impunity, incompetence in cabinet. We have the chief laws here. The regulations, luckily, have been annulled by this House because it has stood with the people, Mr. Speaker, and it is the next motion after this. We have seen extrajudicial abductions in Makueni. One has happened this weekend. A nominated councillor, MCA, was abducted on Saturday, taken around in circles, kept in Communicado. When we made noise yesterday, he was dropped in Makindu town, very sick. And the abductors were asking him about an incident where there was a problem at the funeral of an MCA with a local member of parliament who had voted yes, causing a scuffle with the funeral. And these people who tortured this MCA were asking him why he had brought problems, yet it is the MP himself who caused the problems and is the one who started attacks on the MCA. But that is extrajudicial. If you have committed an offense, you have to be arrested, statements written, and charged in 24 hours. And therefore, these abductions, some of the kids of Gen Z who have been abducted from the demonstrations have been found dead, one in a quarry. We hope the others are safe, and if they are safe, the government should release them. The president promised that there are no people going to be found in River Yala. I hope after this incident, those who have been kidnapped will not be found in the River Yala. And we've had, the issue of, so that I may go faster, Mr. Speaker, let me conclude with the issue of pensions. When people retire in this country, Mr. Speaker, and these Gen Zs have their parents who have retired, their pension never comes easy. If it is a teacher, if it is a former President Uhuru Kenyatta, their money just disappear. And these people are tortured. They have reached 60. They are unable to begin a business. They are waiting for their money, and their money has failed to come. Mr. Speaker, all these frustrating situations in the country must change. We hope IBC is going to be put into place quickly. We hope a lot of Gen Zs are now raising signatures for members of National Assembly who are incompetent from August this year. I am very sure most of them will be removed because of what they have been doing to the people, and quite a number of by-elections will ensue. So the Gen Z continue with the hashtag Ruto must go. Something must be done in this country, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that the Gen Zs are satisfied and all Kenyans are happy. We are a very hard-working nation. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Senator Karen Nyam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to start by giving my respects to the young souls who lost their lives during the recent protests that we witnessed as a country. And as a mother, it hurts to my stomach to lose our children in that manner. I want to send my condolences to the families of the ones who lost their loved ones. And I want to say it is not in vain. As a Senate, we are here reflecting and debating on the actions due to the contribution of your children. I also want to thank the CS of Health, CS Nakumicha, for waiving the hospital bills of those young people who got injured, and the President for committing to take up the funeral expenses and compensating the families, Mr. Speaker. It is also very concerning the silence of the IG of Police, Mr. Koome. We are yet to get a comment from him on the happenings of this country in those 2 weeks that we witnessed unprecedented actions by our young people. Mr. Speaker, the country is experiencing a youth bulge. 75% of our population is people below the age of 35 years, Mr. Speaker, and that is not necessarily a bad thing, because it means that we have a large workforce that, if put into use, can give us great dividends of the economy, Mr. Speaker. And when the President, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, took out of office, when he assumed office as the President of Kenya, we have seen deliberate efforts that are aimed at utilizing that youth bulge, Mr. Speaker. The affordable housing project currently is employing between 140,000 youth to 200,000, Mr. Speaker. And you can see that he had thought about this large number of youth. Another program, Mr. Speaker, of the Finya computer utoe dollar that has been made fun of in this country. It is a program that, if utilized well by our young people and if taken up, can end up turning them into taxpayers, and they can make use of their skills. Because, Mr. Speaker, every year we are churning out between 600,000 and 700,000 young people from our universities, from our TVETs, from our high schools. They come and join the job market, and they don't find employment that is commensurate to their training and aspirations, Mr. Speaker. But another thing that the President has been doing, it is the export of labor. And I've also heard people criticizing this program, saying that we want to make it at home. We can make it at home, and we don't have to export labor to other countries, Mr. Speaker. I want to say that there are families in this country who are poverty-ridden, and all they survive on is sending a member of their family outside the country, Mr. Speaker. One of the leading countries, the Philippines, one of their biggest economy contribution that contributes to 12% of the GDP is a labor export, Mr. Speaker. And those efforts have been done by that country deliberately. And that is what the President has been trying to achieve. I want to challenge the youth. Now that we have affordable fertilizer, we have vast land, available land, agricultural land in the country, I want to challenge them to get involved in agribusiness. That there is huge potential in agribusiness, and you can become self-employed, and you can be part of the nation building in that way. Here in Nairobi, our young people are usually used during the political process. We rely on them heavily for campaigns. They are a tool for creating hype for us candidates. But when you get into office, for example, your hands are tied because you want to help them, but the available opportunities are not that many. Mr. Speaker, if I open for you my DM, my Instagram direct message now, the amount of messages, people requesting me or begging me to assist them get employment, Mr. Speaker. And I have observed this over time, and I have been wondering, I've been asking myself, how long can we sustain this kind of desperation among the youth? Mr. Speaker, we have an advantage of having a youth, a large youth that has energy, that has a lot of potential, it is largely educated, and it is time as a country we come up with ways for utilizing these young people, because when they are not gainfully employed, when they are not channeling their energy the right way, it is how we end up getting instability and even being exposed to political triggers that we saw last week, the last 2 weeks. Because, Mr. Speaker, even if the youth came to the streets, they were coming to the streets because of a lot of other reasons. Lack of employment for them and their mothers, and a myriad of reasons that took them to the streets. Because, truth be told, the finance bill had very little to do with it. And the misinformation that was also in the streets, in the youth that took to the streets, was noticeable, Mr. Speaker. Because I saw ladies carrying placards protesting the increase of taxes on sanitary products and or diapers, Mr. Speaker, which is not the truth. Who in their right senses can dare tax sanitary towels and diapers in Kenya, Mr. Speaker? The thing that the government wanted to achieve by introducing an eco-levy on imported sanitary towels and diapers from China, the substandard ones, the bad quality ones, is to have us be self-sufficient in that field, because truth be told, there is a huge demand for pads and a huge demand for diapers. So if we start and if we grow that industry, it will create jobs for our people, and it is these young people who took the streets are the ones who are going to benefit. Instead of that labor going to the Chinese youth, it will end up being the Kenyan labor that we are utilizing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am on record before this House as tasking the Finance Committee to give me or to give this House an audit on how many of our young people have benefited from the AGPO program. And I wanted to know, in our parastatals, in our county governments, how many youth people are getting tenders that rightfully belong to them, Mr. Speaker. And we have to interrogate these opportunities that are already available, that the youth are not going to our young people and wrongfully going to the wrong hands, and we end up having the situation like the one we had. And on the finance bill, Mr. Speaker, I am one of those people who can swear by the President of this country, His Excellency, Dr. William Ruto. I believe that the intentions of the President were in the right place with that bill. I want to disagree with Senator Shakila, who claimed here that the President is a perpetrator of corruption. And it's only that this debate is interrupted, and that's why we did not raise a point of order. But nothing can be further from the truth, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the President's intentions are in the right place. In that same finance bill, tea packaging had been exempted from the 16% rate that previously attracted. Eco-levy was placed on every finished product that comes to this country, together with raw materials, potatoes, eggs, onions, and all that, Mr. Speaker. These are measures that we should all support, but we all agree that the information and the communication team of the President and of the government did not disseminate this information to the ground, because I am sure if that had been done, we would have gotten more support, and the people who took advantage of our young people politically to settle political scores or aspirations could not have found that kind of number that they got from our young people, Mr. Speaker. And speaking of misinformation, I am one of those people who bore the brunt of the misinformation about the finance bill, even on social media, Mr. Speaker. I have lost in my Instagram more than 10,000 followers because I was involved in a conversation on my comment section. A lady came to my page asking me, how can you as a woman support a bill that proposes to tax sanitary towels? And so I responded to try and explain to her that that is not the case, and locally manufactured sanitary towels were not going to attract the eco-levy. And so she asked me, which local sanitary towels do you use, Karen? And I responded to her, I use tampons. Because, Mr. Speaker, I use tampons. And that was taken as arrogance, as how dare you see? But this is stemming from misinformation, Mr. Speaker. And I have earned myself a new name in this country as Shori for tampons, Mr. Speaker. You'll come across it on social media. They are calling me Demo tampons, Shori wa tampons. They even told on me to the President when he was holding the X-Space, he was engaging the young people. They told him that some of the leaders under you are very arrogant. Senator Karen Nyamu is very, very arrogant, based on my statement saying that I use tampons. And Mr. Speaker, this is the first time, because of this finance bill supporting the government position, this is the first time in my life that I am being called arrogant, Mr. Speaker. Those who know me, those who have had the chance to interact with me, will speak of my humility, will speak of my person, my persona, my down-to-earth nature, and far from it. And far from it. And if I was misunderstood, because I certainly was, I want to say to the youth of Kenya, to the women of Kenya who got angry by my statement, that I don't withdraw because I use tampons, but I am sorry for angering you, and I am one of those fighters of the young generation. And I know they were very disappointed that I did not join in this what they were agitating for against the finance bill, but it is because I believe in the President, William Samoei Ruto. And it is up to me to convince you young people that our President has the best intentions for this country. It is not up to me to join you in your misinformation. It is up to me as an ambassador of this government to show you and to win you over and to tell you, be patient. The President is working. He has shown a lot of goodwill so far. He has appointed a task force to audit our public debt, which is one of the biggest reasons why we are here today, our public debt. The Finance Bill 2024 was tailored to remedy some of those things, especially the public debt, to balance that and development, Mr. Speaker. Another thing that my colleagues have also addressed is the issue of corruption. Mr. Speaker, the EACC is letting the country down big time. Because since its inception, we are yet to see heads rolling, Mr. Speaker. We are yet to see the cases, corruption cases that they have prosecuted that have ended up having people serve jail term, or what our people would love to see, Mr. Speaker. It should not be business as usual. If they cannot deliver to our people, the EACC, let it be disbanded, and let us have another body that is going to deliver to the people of Kenya. The excuses that they give every other time will not fly anymore. And Mr. Speaker, I want to talk to the young people of Kenya, and I want to tell you to take voters' cards. Register as voters, all of you. The voice that we had, your voice that we had, it will be more powerful if it is heard through the ballot box, Mr. Speaker. And I want to assure you that in 2027, you will have no better candidate. You will agree with me that you will have no better candidate than His Excellency, William Samoei Ruto. The other day he said, the measures he's taking now are akin to a cut, an examination cut. And in the fullness of time, in 5 years, he is going to sit for the exam. And on that time, when that time comes, I know you will all agree with me. So when that time comes for voters registration, I expect all of you who are in the streets to take voters' card. And with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Senator Ranchesa.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for also allowing me to make my contribution on the state of the nation. First, Mr. Speaker, let me just first start by conveying my condolences to the families that lost their loved ones in the current maandamano, and also wish a quick recovery to those ones who got injured. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to also thank the tribeless and courageous youths, the GNZs who went to the streets to speak on behalf of this nation, speak on behalf of the Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, I'd like also to confirm that I'm one of the few leaders who tweeted and asked the President to also listen to the voices of the youths, Mr. Speaker. Thirdly, I'd like also to thank His Excellency, the President William Ruto, for actually conceding and allowing the the youth, some of the Gen Zs, to exercise their democratic right, and also listened to them. Mr. Speaker, I can assure you, if you look at our neighboring countries, if you look at Uganda, if you look at Rwanda, they do not have the democratic right that we have here. So I'd like just to appreciate His Excellency William Samoei Ruto for listening to these youths, listening to their grievances, and conceding not to sign the finance bill, and rather agreed to dialogue because of the protests that were there in the country. Also, I'd like also to comment, Mr. Speaker, because I've had the whole of last week I sat in this parliament listening to many senators who were trying to divert the attention of the country by saying that Harambes are bad, and now actually leading to the president banning these Harambes. Mr. Speaker, I can say I am a living proof, and I'm a product of these Harambes. Some of us went to school because of these Harambes or contributions. Maybe we can just say nowadays maybe some are wrongly done, or maybe some if you are doing an Harambe, then it does not mean you, if it's genuinely from your heart, it does not mean you have to show off, or maybe, let me say, put everything on social media. But Mr. Speaker, one thing that I know these youths are doing, these youths are on the street, is because of lack of employment. That is number one. Number two, it's because of maybe where they're from. Maybe most of their parents are not able to take them to school, or maybe they have one or two different challenges, or maybe other many issues that might be facing them, Mr. Speaker. So we should not divert this country and talk about the Harambes are the issue in this country, but we should talk about the real issues. That is corruption in this country and the unemployment facing our youth, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, in terms of corruption, Mr. Speaker, I agree and also concur with my fellow senators that the EACC has failed us, and the government should really work on strengthening institutions that are tasked to fighting corruption. They should be very strict, Mr. Speaker, and also, apart from being strict, Mr. Speaker, they should also empower these institutions. Most of these institutions, Mr. Speaker, are also normally under-budgeted for. That is why they cannot achieve their mandate in pushing this, in pushing their agendas, Mr. Speaker. Talk about even the police, Mr. Speaker. If you look at their salaries, Mr. Speaker, they do not have motivation, or maybe they're underpaid for the costs or the security they're providing to this country, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I also believe that is a problem, and it is something that should be addressed, Mr. Speaker. Another thing, Mr. Speaker, that I also want to talk about is corruption down to our county governments, Mr. Speaker. And it also applies to this Senate, Mr. Speaker. If you look at our specific committees that usually call our governors here, Mr. Speaker. You look at, for example, a committee like CPAC or CPIC, Mr. Speaker, whereby we call the county government officials, we call our governors here, Mr. Speaker, and for example, I am a member, or maybe I'm the chair of ICT, and my governor is called Mr. Speaker, and you go to that committee as a friend of the committee, Mr. Speaker. We have tried to, we are looking at serious issues of the county government, which we are allowed to oversight all these county governments, Mr. Speaker, but we cannot provide oversight, Mr. Speaker, when we are at that committee, Mr. Speaker. That is why we are proposing, Mr. Speaker, amendments to these committees, and we, as the senators of specific county governments that are called by this specific committee, Mr. Speaker, we can co-chair we can co-chair these committees when these people, these governors are coming, so that we can make sure that we provide oversight to our people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another thing, Mr. Speaker, I want to talk about is public participation, Mr. Speaker. When you look at public participation, I can tell you for a fact that this is what really contributed to the GNZs go to the streets, Mr. Speaker, is communication, Mr. Speaker. It's public participation, Mr. Speaker. I can tell you 100% that I am 100% sure public participation was not well done by this government, or maybe it's not done, Mr. Speaker. I can give you an example. We have bills and policies that we are making, Mr. Speaker, and when it comes to public participation, Mr. Speaker, we normally, as committees, write on newspapers, Mr. Speaker. I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the complaints that the GNZs were making, Mr. Speaker, not only those youths of ours who are in this country were complaining, Mr. Speaker. We had our children, Mr. Speaker, from abroad, from Canada, from Australia, from what, putting back their grievances, Mr. Speaker. And this shows you that not only those ones who are here are the ones who want to participate in matters affecting this country, Mr. Speaker. We have youths from all over the world who always want to participate. And you see, the manner we are participating, or the manner we do our public participation, is going to hold barazas in the villages, Mr. Speaker, going to different counties manually to get views and to get submissions from these people, Mr. Speaker. You can imagine, Mr. Speaker, when there's one stakeholder, Mr. Speaker, that I asked or requested for his submissions, Mr. Speaker, and the submissions were brought by a pickup, Mr. Speaker, to the committee. You can imagine how much time we need to read documents, you can imagine the logistics that they use to bring all these documents to our committees, Mr. Speaker. It even makes it very hard for us as members to go through all these papers and stuff, Mr. Speaker. That is why, as the chairman of the ICT committee, Mr. Speaker, we are proposing for this government to create a tool, Mr. Speaker, to participate. We have a online public participation, Mr. Speaker. Even our proceedings here in this house, Mr. Speaker, we will add more value when we engage Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. We will add more value when Kenyans can listen to us live and can also participate or make comments on our live debates and live policies that we created in this house, Mr. Speaker. So it's also learning from the people that we represent. We can get more value listening to their views, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another thing I can assure you, and it's a fact that I want to really sensitize on, Mr. Speaker, is, and I also propose that we amend and operationalize the National Youth Council Act, Mr. Speaker, 209, to align with the Constitution of 2010, Mr. Speaker, whereby, Mr. Speaker, for example, the ministers representing the youth, Mr. Speaker, or the CECs in our county governments, Mr. Speaker, representing our youths must be youths, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I can assure you the level of disconnect between the national government and the youth is very wide, Mr. Speaker. And that's why you see whatever is happening. I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, that the youths who are on that street, the GNZs who are on that street, Mr. Speaker, are speaking a very different language, Mr. Speaker. If today you put Senator Khalwale as the sports minister for youth, or let me say Senator Maanzo, Mr. Speaker, he will not relate to these GNZs, Mr. Speaker. The language they are talking about, Mr. Speaker, is very different. I can assure you that Senator Maanzo does not understand. In fact, the other day at the VIP launch, Mr. Speaker, Senator Maanzo was asking me what Godha means, Mr. Speaker. And I had to take almost 20 minutes explaining to Senator Maanzo what Godha is. The same Senator Khalwale, Mr. Speaker, who is our chief whip, Mr. Speaker, our majority whip, Mr. Speaker, was asking me what Kufinish Kumalo is, Mr. Speaker. This is the same language that these youths are talking, and we have to put youth in these ministries, if not even the minister, Mr. Speaker, the advisors of these ministers.
Senator Chesang, I think you can give other examples, other examples of that language. If
Mr. Speaker, let me tell you, the words I'm speaking about, Mr. Speaker, have meanings to this youth. If you communicate with them with these words that they understand, Mr. Speaker, that is the best way they can understand, Mr. Speaker. I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, why I'm talking about this, there are even words and signs the youths, these GNZs use in terms of communication. If you look at even just the way they are dancing or they are moving their body, they mean something to communicate, Mr. Speaker. I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, if these youths came to this to this Senate, Mr. Speaker, and they stand outside here and they say, Anguka nayo, Anguka na Speaker, Mr. Speaker, that word means a word, Mr. Speaker. Why I'm trying to say this is, Mr. Speaker, is because we need to relate. I'm talking about the disconnect between the youth and the national government is really wide, Mr. Speaker. And the only way these youths can understand is putting, or not even the ministers, but their advisors or their board have to have the youths represented so that they can address the issues that are affecting them, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, you looked at the crowd that was on those streets, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we had, just because of the unemployment that we have, and you equally, you remember, Mr. Speaker, one of the youths was talking about the only mistake you did is educating us, Mr. Speaker. Those were the sentiments these youths were talking about. They are even calling, they are regretting going to school. They are even saying, the problem you people did is educating us, and that is why we are here. That is why they can read and understand everything. This is to show that how frustrated they are, Mr. Speaker. One thing I'd like to urge our government, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of our youths, who most of them are now online marketers by virtue of unemployment, and they go to the social media and teach themselves to be online marketers, Mr. Speaker. Most of our youths, majority of the youths who were on that street, Mr. Speaker, are content creators, Mr. Speaker, by nature, Mr. Speaker. You can imagine the number of youths who are on the streets made the world to know whatever is happening in Kenya, Mr. Speaker. That means the communication was loud, Mr. Speaker. And how do they communicate? Through these social media platforms, Mr. Speaker. Through TikTok, through Instagram, through Facebook, and other social media platforms, Mr. Speaker. What I want to request the government is, Mr. Speaker, if you look at Tanzania clearly, Mr. Speaker, creating unemployment in this government, Mr. Speaker, let's not talk about only the many digital hubs that we are putting, which we appreciate the President in pursuing this and being the ICT chairman. This will create a lot of jobs, Mr. Speaker. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, we have so many content creators who are here on these streets, Mr. Speaker. The government failed in terms of communication because we did not communicate these agendas properly, Mr. Speaker. And I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, if we use these content creators to sell our government agendas, to sell the government services is providing, Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that the agendas will get to the normal machinani and to our many youths, Mr. Speaker. So let us make sure we use our own youths, our own content creators. Let us employ these many youths, many content creators, Mr. Speaker, to sell our agenda, and that is a form of employment, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to finish by saying that even the same content creators, Mr. Speaker, will sell our country, will sell the tourism in our country and the beauty of this country, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I've had Senator Karen Nyamu also supporting the issues for the sanitary towels, Mr. Speaker. The last time I talked about this, Mr. Speaker, in this House, I talked about these sanitary towels to our young girls, Mr. Speaker.
To make it worse, reading is not my strong suit. I just confirm the bay, alafu naweka kidole bahali yake.
That's true. That's correct. I am your counselor, and my name is Sir Nicholas.
Aye, kwani they didn't find anyone better? We don't utilize leftovers, you know.
That was very important, teacher. There, sir. You can proceed.
How about you settle down and we get this lesson kicking?
Kicking who? Malmumba, in the way we don't have time for your jokes. With all due respect, get out.